I scurried to clean the water on the floor, using a handful of paper towels and quickly throwing them in the trash, as if nothing happened. My heart raced in my chest from the anxiety. The fuck are you doing in here? You don't get to eat my food. Get your ass on the floor. Jade screamed, rushing over to my now trembling figure and kicking my knee in. I crashed to the floor, lowering my head to avoid her face, and another impact crashed into the middle of my back. Tears brimmed my eyes, and I grasped the tiny cracks in the tile. Feeling her drill, the steel-toe combat boots straight into my side. My mother was away when my father cheated on her. She came back and found them together. My dad, in the spur of the moment, didn't know what excuse to make, so he beat her nearly to death. I was blamed he left with the other woman, and my mother was sure to keep me here, using me to get out her frustrations over my father. So she didn't have to buy things. She broke around the house. She thought I was stealing food because I ate out of the trash. Any leftovers she had was never daily, but it happened. Whenever she'd get drunk or high, I'd sneak in here like an animal, to scrounge for food in the filthy, bagless can. If she ever saw me standing, I'd be forced to the floor. I think my height intimidates her, even though she can destroy me. She stands at the good height of 5'3", where I stand with 5'9". I used to fight back, but I've realized it's easier to just accept. Oh, she was a Navy SEAL. Get the fuck out. Move it, she shrieked, kicking the side of my face, and I clenched my eyes close to keep my tears at bay. Eye contact is another big no-no. The last time I ever looked up at her, she gave me calcium hydroxide eye drops. It was excruciatingly painful, and I haven't been able to see through my left eye since I've been half-blind for 2 years. The luxury to be able to see with both brings me to silent cries. I've forgotten what it's like. I urgently crawled out of the room, on my hands and knees. My head hung low as I scrambled into the living room, back to my crate. When I curled up inside the cramped space, she slammed the exit closed and locked me in, kicking the side of it with a string of curses. You good-for-nothing piece of garbage. You're wasting perfectly good space. I should throw you to the wolves, then watch as they tear into you, limb by limb, he threatened, planting one last kick to the outside, and I flinched. I watched her retreating figure and broke down, allowing my tears to fall freely with low shivers. The cold feel of the crate against my skin created goosebumps. This is where I slept, and it's where I go whenever I disobey. It never lasts, because she's too eager to start beating on me again. She took away my clothes as well, and not good enough to have my body covered. The only time I get the privilege is when she sends me into the stores. I enjoy getting out, but it only worsens my depression. It's a reminder that I'll never be free. She went as far as implanted a tracker in the back of my neck, just to make sure of it. As for my bodily fluids, when I have to use the bathroom, she takes me to the backyard, or forces me to go in my crate. We live nowhere near others. It's a small country home, so even if I get outside privilege, nobody can see to help me. And my period comes around, I have to bleed on myself. She doesn't let me out of here during that time, so I can't complain too much. I have to sleep in chunks of my uterus, aligning once a month for a week. I'm a heavy bleeder, which makes it much worse. That's also the only time I get to bathe. She is the one to clean me, touching every crease of my body with a moldy sponge. She doesn't trust I won't drown myself. I wish she'd just kill me, if her hate is as strong as it seems. Except she couldn't be without her punching bag. I know as long as she lives I don't get to. A burning pain in my muscles pulled me back to consciousness, and my body was surprisingly still clothed. My arms were strained behind my back in the handcuffs Jade always used whenever she was about to punish me severely. Tears were flowing down my face as I sat up, struggling to free myself from the binds. when I saw her nearing me. You need to be taught a lesson, you stupid cunt. You think you can just run away from me, exactly like your father. She spat angrily. I shook my head trying to appease her, rolling to my stomach and bowing down to her feet, hoping she will take it easier on me tonight. I doubted it because I've done 3 things she hates. The things I was never supposed to do, unless I wanted death. She kicked the side of my face and I fell to my side, clenching my eyes shut from the pain. There's no time to recover, before she buried her fingers into my hair and dragged me out the back door. The freezing air smacked me and I shivered. We approached the mossy, smelly miniature pond and my heart dropped. Go in there and retrieve your foot, and I'll give you another chance. She sneered, confusing me with her words. I still have all of my limbs. An excruciating burning pain appeared in my ankle, and I desperately wanted to scream out, burying my face into the cold earth. As my tears watered the grass, I curled up my body, shaking with my silent sobs, alongside her cackling laughter. Oh, shut the fuck up. He scoffed, crouching down to my level and shoving my now severed foot into my face. I cried harder at the disturbing sight. Be grateful I'm giving you this chance. I should just cut both your feet off, so you'll never run again. This lesson is far more entertaining. Now go fetch, stupid mutt. She cackled again, throwing my foot into the pond and kicking me in the side to roll me on my back. I'd hurry, there's a short time frame where I'm able to put it back. She mocked, turning away and walking back into the house. I tried to pull my hands out of the cuffs, but they were too tight, resulting in me to roll into the ice-cold water. Due to my squirming, Goosens kissed my body, and the clothes I wore weighed me down, making it nearly impossible to stay above the surface. I kicked my legs around and struggled to use the water to lube my hands to freedom, but it was no avail. I felt myself sink and I inhaled harshly, falling under the water and flailing my body around in an attempt to take control of the situation. That's when my injured leg kicked into sharp rocks, and I fell closer to the bottom and I clenched my jaw, my body tightening in extreme pain. This almost made me gasp in the water around me. That area was very sensitive because of all the exposed tissue, and I already felt myself growing lightheaded from blood loss. I'm going to die. I can't do this. Just as I was about to give up, a memory from my childhood hit me. I'm unsure if it was my life flashing before my eyes, because I'm about to die, but the memory was vivid. My dad was telling me what to do if I ever grew too tired during one of my swims, and I was too far from shore. If you find yourself too weak to stay surfaced, stop struggling. It'll only make you sink. As hard as it might be, just hold your breath, relax and let your body do the rest. I forced my body to relax, straining to keep myself from breathing. A few seconds later, the surprisingly warm air hit my body, and I opened my eyes with a gasp, finding myself floating on my back. I looked around me trying to find my foot, my panic returning when I couldn't find it, and my body sunk again. I kept my eyes open and ignored the stinging from the bacteria in the water, my eyes struggling to see clearly in the darkness. So I waited until I hit the bottom before pushing myself deeper into the pond. Axel Morty's POV. I crossed out the page and slammed the pen down, lifting my board. Haze to the moron sitting across from me. Hey. I ate the paper and swallowed, his jaw tightening in annoyance upon seeing my rejection. I'm a bit offended. You thought I was idiotic enough to sign this. Alpha Terry, I shot him a flat look, leaning back in the chair and rubbing my chin. He looked down in shame and I narrowed my eyes at him. What, you have nothing to say? I might be young, but did you really think I'd give up the most valuable piece of my land in exchange for 5 new warriors? Trainees to be exact. I'll give you Civ. He started shutting his mouth when I put up my hand. Enough, I growled, turning my attention to the window to admire one of the many beautiful sunrises the spring brings. It calms me drastically when morons like this come in here, mocking my intelligence. Alpha Morty, I was cut off again when the door opened, and my beta rushed him covered in water. But there was something different about his scent that made my wolf unsettled. I don't mean to interrupt, Alpha, but this is an emergency. I need to talk to you like now. He breathed. Terry sensed the urgency and surprisingly caught the hint, standing up and giving me a nod. Before leaving the room, I rolled my eyes and ran a hand down my face. What now? I sighed, watching him drip water all over my wooden flooring. As he opened his mouth with hand movements, however, no words seemed to make it over his tongue. Don't get mad, but he managed to spit out, inhaling deeply. I found your mate last night, so I followed her into a store with Liam, and I think we scared her. I didn't say anything because I thought my wolf made a mistake. Until just now, I happened to be on a run and seen her fall down the waterfall. So I ran to her before she hurt herself. Now, she's unconscious in my room because I don't know what else to do with her, he replied all in one sentence, panning afterward with a nervous smile. My body stiffened and my wolf snarled, clawing his way to control, but I kept him back. My mate, I glared, disbelieving his ramble. I was supposed to find her years ago, but I didn't. Even after traveling pack to pack, lining up every mate less female, I was unsuccessful. Or could he mistakenly find her? She rogue show me. I got off my chair and followed him out of my office, making our way down the hall and up a flight of stairs. We reached his room and he opened the door. Except my wolf was furious. I find her curled up on the floor. I growled threateningly and he widened his eyes. I didn't want her in my bed because she's wet. Besides, you would have killed me for rubbing my scent on her. Just leave, I snarled, sending him running down the hall with a few stumbles as he tripped over himself. I then took a deep breath and entered the room, closing the door behind me and frowning at the foreign scent emitting from her. She's human, it's mate. We have her, she's here. She's really here. We have to take her home. Dax spurred, wagging his tail and prancing all around my mind like an excited puppy. Ignoring him, I quietly made my way over to her sleeping figure and knelt down, softly peeling the wet hair off her cheek and clenching my jaw at the sight of her sketchy face. She was as pale as a vampire, and her face was covered in small dirt cuts. There was also a bruise covering her right cheek. My wolf started growling, then I blocked him out before I lost control. I don't know anything about her kind, aside from the fact they're fragile beings. She fell in the water. The rocks definitely busted her up. The river is dangerous for even us, and we're much stronger. If Blaine didn't get to her when he did, I'm sure she would have died. And the thought alone put both me and my wolf in a frenzy. What was she thinking? Why was she so far from town? How did she not see the waterfall? So many questions swirled my mind and I felt a headache forming. I won't let anything hurt you again, I promised in a whisper, letting my eyes linger on her beautiful face before cautiously scooping her in my arms and holding her firmly against my body. She's freezing and my heart clenched. Knowing she must be uncomfortable, I kept her close to warm her up, but was careful not to wake her. Judging by the bags beneath her eyes, she's exhausted. I felt immense anger and sadness. Seeing her so overloaded, she should never feel this burdened. Our mate is strong. Dax barked proudly, purring in approval, and I smiled down at her. She's the most precious being I've ever seen, and she's all mine. I carried her out the door and proceeded toward my house. In most packs, the Alpha and Luna have a separate house, and never too far in case of emergencies, but they're far enough for privacy. I've been dreaming of the day where I get to share my belongings with my mate. It's been extremely lonely without her. Entering the house, I pulled the door closed silently and walked her to my room, where I set her on the bed. She jolted and I froze, seeing her face morph in pain, before falling neutral once more. Did I hurt her? Why did she react that way? Was I too rough setting her down? You're my queen, I whispered, analyzing her figure more in depth. Now that we're alone, and far from others, my eyebrows furrowed. The more I noticed how large her clothes were on her. They also carried many holes and stains. My eyes drifted up to her face again and I frowned. The bones were extremely pronounced, more than I've ever seen, and uneasiness infected my stomach. I wasn't sure what was normal for humans, and what wasn't, so I couldn't depict if this was a concern or not. Regardless, I was concerned. I'll be back later, okay? I didn't wait for her response, already aware that I won't be getting one. Because she's asleep, I stood up and left the room, heading toward the front door, already longing to be back with my precious human. Lane, you're in charge of guarding your Luna. As I finish reading and signing treaties, if she wakes, tell me. I'm mind-linked, exiting the house, and already passing by him on my way back to my office. He bowed and rushed inside, bringing a small smile to my face for being so hasty. I'm going to LOOO, wolf-loving mate. My wolf howled, spinning in circles while chasing his tail, and I shook my head at him. Me too, Dax. Angelica Winters. POV. My body was sunken into a strange cushioning, and my exhaustion was intense. Confusion suddenly hit me. When I remembered I jumped to my death, I opened my eyes in panic, seeing that I was in an unknown room on someone's bed. The only light came from the moon shining through the window, and my stomach churned with nausea. I've been sleeping all day. Surely Jade wouldn't have given me such a luxury, unless the punishment planned is just that bad. I slipped off the bed and took a step toward the door, freezing when I heard footsteps heading this way. As they grew near, I dropped to the floor on my hands and knees, with a lowered head, uncontrollably crying at the idea of death by her. I never should have ran. She was bound to catch me again sooner or later. Running only makes it worse. The door whipped open right after my body, thudded onto the carpet. Hands were on me. Not even a second later, and I jolted away. I gripped the side of the bed tightly, burying my tear-stained face into the mattress rigidly. You don't have to be afraid of me, an unfamiliar, male voice spoke. I refused to release the bed with small sniffles. My best friend found you unconscious and brought you here. He helped you. His words were drawn, as if they would frighten me, and I instinctively ran my fingers over my face, searching for new injuries. Then, opening my eyes just enough to see them bloodless, a warm feeling fuzzed in place of my nausea, and I reached for my neck, jolting my hand away at the unknown object over my wound. Yet still no blood covered my hand. Jade never covers my wounds, no matter how serious they are. It's gauze. My friend patched you up a few hours ago, he said. You started bleeding and were getting an infection, he added, and I cautiously turned my drooped head, keeping my gaze low. He inched closer and I clenched the bedding. My eye locked onto his body, and goosebumps covered my skin. What happened to you? He asked quietly. His voice was gentle, and I wasn't sure whether to acknowledge him or not. What is he doing? What's his plan? Why is he waiting so long to hit me? Slowly, I shook my head and let go of the bedding. My body shook again when his hand extended toward me. In a very slow manner, I wearily eyed his seemingly unthreatening hand, and flinched when he placed it on my knee. Confusion whirled within me when his touch didn't hurt. Instead, it was a warm and soothing one. My lip quivered and I continued to tremble, staring at his hand, waiting for it to cause me immense pain. That never came. "I'm not going to hurt you," he stated. His body inched even closer, and my heart shot out of my chest. I jumped away from his advancing figure and curled up, using the hood of the sweatshirt to shield my face. "Would you like a bath to help you relax? Possibly warm you up?" he asked, and my heart slowed at the offer and I felt myself calm. Bathing is my favorite thing, even when she'd roughly scratch my skin with a bristled sponge. The warmth of the water always eased my aches. Yet confusion hit me again. I don't bathe until my period ends. I just had my period less than a week ago. I don't shower more than once a month. Then again, who was I to turn him down? He might get angry. I carefully started to remove the sweatshirt from my torso, only making it halfway up my abdomen. And my action was quickly halted at the sound of his voice. "Whoa, you could wait until getting into the bathroom before undressing." He sounded almost as confused as I was. My heart started racing at his growing tone, and I dropped it back down to cover me. I heard movement, and his now standing legs came into view. My nostrils flared at my harsh exhale, but he just stood there. Was he challenging me to move so he could hit me? A clanging sound jolted me awake and I jumped a mile, ripping my eyes open widely, with a cold explosion in my chest before spotting a plate on the bedside table. My gaze found the man from last night, standing next to it, holding a glass full of some orange liquid. "It's okay. I brought you breakfast," he said softly, sluggishly. Placing the glass next to the plate of food and taking a few steps back. "If you don't like it, I can make you something else." I slid toward the delicious-smelling food and grabbed a piece of the many yellow chunks, reluctantly putting it in my mouth, and the warm flavor melted on my taste buds. I've only ever eaten cold leftovers of the same three: mashed potatoes, pasta, and tofu. "The utensil on the plate, you use that?" His voice interrupted my moment, and I glanced over to make sure he wasn't approaching, and I vaguely heard him mutter, "I wish I could take away your pain." My hand reached for the silver object, picking it up and stabbing into the yellow chunks. I eagerly shoved it into my mouth. The object stabbed into my lip and I threw it down, covering my face and sucking the metallic taste off. "Are you okay?" he panicked. His arms were around my body instantly, and fear strangled me. My heart physically moved my chest with its harsh, rapid beats and I clenched my eyes shut, with expectation of inevitable pain. My anticipation made me flinch when I felt his finger connect with my injury. My scrunched face started to relax, his thumb grazing my lip gently, and warm tingles followed the painless action. "Please be careful. You're hurt enough," he mumbled, trailing his thumb away from my lips and sliding his hand the rest of the way to my left cheek. I clenched my jaw with tense muscles, not daring to open my eyes, because I knew I'd be face to face with him. "You don't have to be so afraid of me. I only want to help you," he whispered. The feeling of his hand on my face began appeasing my sensitive skin in heated tingles, and my tightened jaw loosened. I felt his body lean forward, and my guard shot right back up, causing the warm feeling in my chest to vanish. My breathing quickened until it came to an abrupt halt, when a smooth pair of lips pressed against my forehead. Softly, I sat there paralyzed and shocked, feeling him linger a moment before leaning back and caressing my cheekbone. "I'll never ever hurt you. If I have to say it every day in order to assure you, then I will." His hand left my face and I hesitantly opened my eyes, seeing him walk out of the room and close the door, quietly as though he was the one afraid to displease. Did he poison the food? Was that his weird way of convincing me to eat more? So, I'll die. Why would he waste his food on me? He didn't eat any of it. It left untouched, so he must have put something in it. I frowned at the plate of steaming yellow chunks, hearing my stomach crumble aggressively at the scent. After teasing myself with 2 bites, "It looks appetizing, but I can't eat anymore." He laced it with something, ignoring my hunger. I made my way to the door and left the room cautiously. I won't wait around and find out what they're planning to do to me. I might have contacted Jade or stalling me. Until she gets here, I won't stay and find out. I trust the animals lurking in the woods more than the humans roaming the streets. At least animals have good reasoning. They attack when they feel threatened or for hunger. Humans do it for joy. I do it just to do it. I'm not meant to be one of them. I always felt deep down that I was born to be something more. I could never be so evil. The long-lost exit finally approached my view, and hope sparked inside me for the first time in forever. My feet took off like a bullet, and I rattled the door loudly, with the force I applied to open it, not bothering to close it, and fully sending myself straight into the trees. At Axel Morty's POV, I opened my eyes in sheer panic, for my mate's intoxicating scent reached my nose, and I physically relaxed. My vision adjusted to the now dark room, and I admired her sleeping figure. Her hand was still holding my paw, and her other was on my back. No longer moving from her previous petting gestures. It pains me to know she doesn't want me. She tried to run away. My delicate little human fears me. And I don't understand why, but it frustrates me not knowing about her. Humans are foreign to me, and I never tried to know them. Their mere existence bothered me. Until I met my beautiful mate. At first I was disappointed and slightly annoyed. The moon goddess would send me someone so different. Or she gave me such a fragile soul, knowing I could break her in seconds. Yet as I examined her, I instantly saw the reason behind her ludicrous choice. She sent her into my life to put an end to my ruthlessness. She gave me a mate so fragile to teach me how to be gentle. Her hand clenched my paw and I grew alarmed, leaning forward without startling her awake, and sniffing the air to ensure she didn't rip open any of the wounds to cause her discomfort. Her grip then loosened and I let out a quiet whine, replacing my head on her collarbone. I hate how easily she receives injuries. Because she's human, there's not much I know about them, and I'll admit that I'm very aware they're prone to physical damage. I hate how that's just part of her delicate human qualities. She's the first one I've met and I'm learning from her. I'm still so uncertain if her actions are normal, and I'm trying my best to suit her comfort until I figure it out. She won't even look at me, and I think that's what hurts the most. I want to see those beautiful eyes. Something happened to Mate. She doesn't trust her own kind. Other humans heard Axe whimpered. I withheld a snarl at the thought, except I knew better than to jump to conclusions. But I'm also beginning to have suspicions that my beautiful girl was beaten. I of all people would know what torture looks like. I've hurt and killed many werewolves without care for years, and if I find out my innocent mate has been receiving the same treatment I inflict, it will bring me so much guilt, shame, and fury. The mere image of her starved body being harmed sent my hackles up in rage, and I bared my teeth, thinking of the many ways I could avenge her. Without certainty that's even what happened, I refrained from letting out a growl. So I didn't scare her awake, and cautiously lifted my body from hers, effortlessly slipping onto the floor to let her sleep in peace, before I went on a rampage over a possibility. She doesn't know that I'm not just a wolf, and it feels wrong tricking her. As much as I want to stay and cuddle with her, I won't. She isn't comfortable with me for me. She's comfortable with me as my wolf. I will try to spend the majority of my time with her, and this from only occasionally slipping in as myself. So I don't startle her any more than I already have. I came onto her to strong and scared her. Who knew insignificant things would set a human off? Enraged me more knowing she could be reacting that way because she was possibly beaten by another person. Either way, I will fix my queen. The sound made me stop mid-step, glancing back at my mate, who was now rubbing her eyes and squinting into the darkened room, making it so I couldn't see into them. Her hands frantically felt around her, and before I could finish my journey to the door, my body was already retreating to the bedside, where one of her searching hands found the fur of my ear. Her soothing touch reminded me of her gentle nature. I will protect her pure beauty with my life. Angelica Winters, POV. I'm here, a familiar male yelled, closing a door behind him, and I froze, clenching onto the fur of Marshmallow until he ripped away from me and bolted straight to the man. I tried to stop him but couldn't, biting my lip and feeling my throat close at the approaching footsteps. Did Marshmallow leave me? Is he afraid of the man too? He left me unprotected. I want you to take Carly to the cells, and I need to see you in my office right after. I'll be there shortly, then I want you to take this. Another male paused. The next words out of his mouth were too quiet to hear. Yet I widened my eyes, recognizing him as the one who gave me this shirt and let me sleep in a bed. It's the man who took me from Jade. Yes, sir. With that, shuffling was heard and the door closed again. The footsteps grew louder and I bolted into the room, crawling on the bed and holding my knees to my chest. The door opened a second later and I felt my eyes water, fear constricting me until I could hardly breathe. Then I felt his warm hand touch my stitched ankle, and I yanked away. My breathing fastened. I still couldn't get a satisfying breath. I'm sorry. He rushed out. Panic laced his words, and I pushed my hands into my chest to calm myself. What happened to you? It looks he trailed off. His next words came out in a strain, like it was amputated. The stuffy nose I had from crying cleared when a rush of ice waved through my body, and I slowly sat up, looking at my discolored ankle, then at his body and frowning. He was wearing shirts and a tight white t-shirt, showing off the huge muscles he could snap me into with. This made me unsettled and with much uncertainty. I hesitantly moved my leg back. I don't want to risk hindering him. He was hesitant as well, sluggishly running his fingers over the stitches. And my heart was racing. I even grew a bit dizzy out of fear, but not once did his actions hurt as expected. He still scares me, but I want him near. It's almost like deep down I actually want to like him. I don't know which emotions to act on, but I do know fear will always play a role. One-sided, it's like I want to trust in, but my brain is forcing me to feel skeptical and afraid something's telling me that he's my comfort and security. However, I just can't seem to force myself to believe that. Was yes amputated? He asked, retracting his hand, and I pulled my leg away. After hearing the raising eager in his voice, he seemed to be trying to hide it, but I could sense the change in his demeanor, and a cold sweat covered my palms. Who did this? He added, did they do it on purpose? Who hurt you? Each question came out angrier than the next. Then my head throbbed, creating a dizzy sensation, followed by an overwhelming heat that made me want to burst into tears again. I clutched the shirt on my body and nodded frantically, looking all around the room with harsh breath. To ensure there was nothing painful he would grab to use on me. The heartbeat in my throat started to hurt, and my body suddenly felt like it weighed a ton. I couldn't move. I really like him. I smiled just writing the words. Then I remembered the other dog he attacked, and a shiver ran through me. If it weren't for Marshmallow, it would have killed me. How many dogs do you have? Only one. But the man you just saw has one too, he answered. Are you okay if I ask you a few questions too? I nodded, staring down at all the empty space on the paper, and jolting at the unexpected feel of his hand on my back as it messed with my hair. I clenched my eyes closed, envisioning him gripping a handful and dripping it out. Chills ran through me, and I opened my eyes to find he was gently running his fingers through my strands, unknotting them slow and painlessly. Who gave you these wounds? He asked, making me go tense, as I swallowed the lump in my throat. My mother. He soon grew tense as well. Turning the chair and opening one of his drawers, I curiously watched him pull out a bristled plastic stick, and he moved back to our previous spot, giving me back my access to the paper and pencil. What was that thing? Was he going to hit me with it? Is he Jade's ultimate test to see if I'd tell? If ever given the chance. Is he working with her? Is this all a trap? All my thoughts disappeared. When something scratched over the shirt on my back, I jumped forward and shook. He wrapped an arm around my torso and forced me back. This made me panic. My anxiety skyrocketing. I fought to escape his grip. Angel beautiful, I'm not trying to hurt you. Just relax a moment. And if it hurts, I want you to tap the table and I'll stop. Okay, he suggested, and I calmed my heart panting, loosening my firm hold on his arm. He's been truthful this whole time. Why wouldn't he now? It'll only be better if I cooperate. He took that as agreement and the scratches reappeared. However, it didn't hurt. I also felt my hair pulling downward, in a manner that released the tension from my face, and my throbbing head started fading. See, I'm just combing the knots out of your hair. I can't imagine how uncomfortable that was for you, he said quietly, continuing slow movements through my hair. And I felt the most relaxed I ever had. Did she do this to you on purpose? His question made me unsettled again, and I swallowed harshly, squeezing the bottom of the shirt, and feeling my eyes water. Airing it verbally announced. Makes it sound so much worse. Like I did something to deserve it, even when I know I didn't. Did I? I understand it's hard, but you have to tell me if she did this intentionally. All I need is a nod and nodded frantically, leaning away from his hands when they came to a halt. Before shielding my face from harsh impacts, I flinched when his hands found my wrists and gently pulled them back, revealing my face to him. I kept my eyes low in submission as I began to tremble nervously. I will never hurt you, he said softly. I desperately wanted to believe him, and a piece of me did, but I pulled my hands back, shaking my head. Why would he, a stranger, hold care for me when my own flesh and blood doesn't? It doesn't make sense. His arm suddenly wrapped around my quaking body and pulled me down, forcing me to lay across his chest and put my head down. I clenched, my eyes closed, my lip quivering. His tears burned in my throat. At the extremely close proximity, I slid my hand to his collar and squeezed a fistful of his shirt. All my other clutched the area over his side, my uncontrollable shakes coming as I curled further into him. Turning so my right cheek rested against his shoulder, I watched his arms warily before I realized my eyelids were drooping. Is this where I came whenever my anxiety got bad? It's a very calming place and it'll do you good. That's the first step to breaking your shell. Find your peace, he explained, releasing my hand and looking down at me. I frowned in confusion, scrunching my eyebrows together and fidgeting with my hands. What I mean is find what relaxes you. That's the start of the long road to recovery, he added. And I looked up at the beautiful scenery, pretending as if he wasn't there, and already feeling myself begin to relax. Nature always calms me. There was an ocean of trees just behind the clear pond in front of us, which was surrounded with many vibrant flowers. I felt a smile tug at my lips, and I hugged my hands to my chest, jumping when I heard his voice again. When you're relaxed, I want you to close your eyes and take big, slow breaths, and after each one, tell yourself something positive. Do that 10 times, he said, taking a small step back, and I held my breath, feeling my relaxed state crumble in fear of his sudden and mentioned movement. I moved my gaze back to the pond and squeezed the shirt over my chest, forcing myself to close my eyes and take a deep breath. It came out shaken, and I tightened my hold on the fabric and strong take another deep breath. My grip loosened, and I felt some of the tension leave my face. I'll be okay. I'm safe, I'm important. Opening my eyes, I grew frustrated that I didn't believe any of my words. He said it would work. He said he'd help me. Why is it not working? Why do I still feel like this? I don't want to feel this way anymore. I want to be normal. I want to be okay. It takes patience, he said, seemingly sensing my frustration, and I shook my head, feeling someone else's hand find my shoulder and making me jump into him. Consumed with panic, he stumbled under my force, his body going tense as I held onto him, shaking involuntarily. I clutched onto his shirt uncontrollable, tears filling my eyes, while I pressed my face harder into his warm chest. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know how easily frightened humans get. A woman's voice stabbed into my ears, and I pressed myself further into him, my breathing rapid, in an attempt to keep my tears from exiting. She's working on it. He cleared his throat and put one of his arms around my back, sending needles of terror down my spine. When no pain followed, the huge amount of relief flooded me. The cold stabs in my back subsided. Be cautious around her for now, okay? I peeked out at the girl and noticed she was glancing between us, a slow look of realization morphing on her features. Oh my God, this is great. I'm so happy for you, little bro. She's so adorable. The woman suddenly cheered, making the man holding me much more tense. And oh, she's not my mate. He rushed out, stumbling over his words, but one in particular lingered in my mind. Mate as in soulmate, they believe in them too. She's not, then why are you holding her like that? And why is this human even here? Does the alpha know you're out here tampering with her? His chest suddenly vibrated with a low rumble. I squeezed his shirt, instantly causing him to fall silent. Be respectful to the Luna. He put emphasis on the strange word and she gasped. I scrunched my eyebrows and tapped his chest lightly to get his attention. He didn't pay it mind because she started talking again. I'm so sorry, we were fine until Gracie. Enough, Blaine, not right now. She's overwhelmed. So, just give me a few minutes, and I'll see you in my office, he replied calmly, tightening his hold on me. When Blaine walked past us, and I snuggled further into him as he trapped around me and eliminated any tension in my body. Tingles tickled every piece of me, and I closed my eyes with a tiny subconscious smile. He makes me feel okay, and I'm not sure how or why, but strangely enough, that doesn't scare me. I'm picking you up, okay, he said softly, and I was cold from my addicting euphoria, nodding at his warning and feeling the tension in my body return. When he moved me off and kneeled, scooping my body up, after allowing me to hold the shirt down, before carrying me out the doors, my panic gradually started to return, and I tugged at his shirt trying to sit up. My breathing was harsh, and I looked down at the grass, which seemed to be a long way down. This made my heart race and I squirmed more, not liking how limited my movements were in this positioning, and my lip quivered, instant tears filling my eyes. I didn't like feeling so vulnerable, it terrified me. I never even felt this vulnerable with Jade. I want down. I can't breathe. What's happening? Are you okay? He held me tighter to his body, and I shook my head frantically, pushing at his chest. He realized immediately and stopped walking, gently placing me on my feet, and I squeezed my hand to distract myself. Did I hurt you? He asked. His voice was strained, as if the question pained him to ask, and guilt nipped at me. I merely shook my head and stared at the ground. He was quiet for a moment. You don't like it when I carry you like that, do you? He questioned. I nodded in shame, expecting him to insult me for panicking. But his next word shocked me. "Ken, I won't do it anymore," he stated. And I felt a familiar warmth engulf my chest. I smiled, uncontrollably at the way it fluttered around my heart. And who knew such pleasure existed? I never imagined another person could make me feel so good. These foreign feelings are addicting, and only he gives me them. I wonder what I did to not deserve them. Was it the tantrums as a toddler? Was it because I stayed up later than my bedtime? Or because I'm just not good enough? Are you feeling alright enough to work? I'll wait as long as needed until you're okay. So, don't feel rushed. He said. I nodded again, hesitantly reaching out and grabbing his hand. I flinched when he wrapped his fingers over mine, my hand instinctively clenching around his, and I took a deep breath. I'm okay taking a step. I tugged his arm and turned around with a frown. Noticing he wasn't moving too, scanned his legs, my eyes jumping to his without second thought, and I upturned my eyebrows. What's that look? Why is he staring at me like that? You're too adorable. He randomly smiled, making heat fill my cheeks, and the warmth in my chest intensified. Another wave of tingles sparked in my hand from his touch, and I quickly looked away, a small smile taking over my lips once more. I guess I'm not as horrible as I believed. He then started walking and I followed, inching closer to his side. Whenever I saw another person, until we made it inside another house. It was the same house I've been sleeping in. He continued to lead me through the halls, turning into a familiar bedroom, and guiding me to the mattress. I sat down, was surrounded by a scent that reminded me of him. It wrapped me in an unexplainable blanket of comfort, and I yawned, moving under the covers and curling up, feeling extremely exhausted. May I ask what happened to her? There was a bit of silence, then a low sigh. I'm not entirely sure myself. All I know is the hunters. Her other end has done vile things. I've been trying to be as patient and as gentle as possible. I don't think I'm trying hard enough, and I don't know what else to do. I don't want her afraid of me, Wayne. This is one of the hardest things I've ever faced. I'm very sorry, sir. From what I've seen, the Luna has been through things I wouldn't wish upon any rogue. Her vocal cords are severely damaged, and there are many other things. I do not wish to get into detail as of right now. A recovery for things like this take time. Besides, I believe you're doing perfect, considering the circumstances. I've noticed she tries to say her name whenever there's obvious signs of discomfort. So, that's progress already. She's doing very well for someone in her condition. I hope so. A low growl-like noise vibrated through the door. It's just so difficult keeping my calm in front of her. I can hardly be around her, because seeing all those markings on her skin makes me so fucking angry. Yet, at the same time, I want to hold her so she knows it's going to be okay. I don't want her to see the other side of me, because it'll scare her. I want her to know who I am. I'm just so stuck. I understand, sir. There was a pause. She will soon see just how far you'll go for her. All it takes is patience. Love her at her worst and she'll love you at her best. There was another pause of silence, just before the door opened, and I closed my eyes, slight panic consuming me. At the sound of footsteps nearing the bedside, I clenched my eyelids and went tense, feeling a warm hand find mine, with familiar tingles following. A few seconds later, Angel. I reopened my eyes in surprise, my gaze landing on Axel, and relief lifted a huge weight off my body. I didn't know he was here. Two male voices outside the door sounded nothing like his. They were stern and bitter. while his is gentle and calming. Are you feeling any better? He added. I stared at our touching hands with a tiny nod. Another hand touched my other arm and I jumped. The previous terror I felt now settling in my gut. I jolted away and grabbed onto Axel, shaking my head frantically at the man in a white French coat. Jade always said, they're out to hurt me because they get money from it. That they're greedy and have no regard for anyone's wellness, Wayne Axel said in a voice I've never heard before. And I let him go to hug myself, disliking his tone that resembled the men in the hall. It gave me chills, the same ones my mother created, and I instantly began questioning if his kindness was a facade. Alpha, the man, replied in a much lighter tone, slightly lowering his head. I frowned with furrowing brows, my eyes darting between their bodies to make sure neither of them tried to grab me more. Confusion whirled around my head the more I thought about what just happened, until a sudden memory hit me. There's a world out there you never would have known existed if I didn't tell you, Angelica. And it's amazing. One day I will take you, and we can see the beauty of it together. But you want to see the doggies with me? Yes, Daddy. I want to go, I giggled, pointing out the window toward the trees with a grin. Our rabbits hopped along. I love animals. I know, honey, he chuckled, ruffling my hair with a crooked smile. But wait, are the doggies special? If they live in a different world than us? A frown in confusion. Scrunching my eyebrows and looking up at him, his smile never faltered, while he knelt down to my level and pinched the fat on my cheek, making me giggle. I haven't been able to spend much time with you, so what do you say? I'll stay with you the rest of the night. We can do whatever you want, beautiful, he suggested, and excitement snaked around my heart, making me nod and step away from him. I made sure he was watching before pointing at him and using my hands to make wolf ears, smiling widely until he scrunched his eyebrows with a smile of his own. This made me begin to frown, telling me he didn't understand, and that's when I started to grow frustrated with myself for being mute. Don't frown, it's okay. I can get you a notebook and a pencil. He rushed out, leading me to the bed, and digging through the nightstand, I allowed my eyes to wander. His stature was interesting, following the curves in his muscles, all the way up into the sleeve of his shirt. The visible strength he had didn't frighten me near as much. Yet, I still had a cold feeling that he would eventually turn against me and no longer use those muscles to protect, but to hurt. I feel guilty for even thinking that. Here, he handed me what he promised, and I took it with a nod and thanks, scooting to the middle of the bed and tapping the area in front of me. This, he understood, taking a seat after removing his shoes and looking at me as if he was patiently awaiting his next order. Are you really a werewolf, D? I showed the notebook to Hen, and he widened his eyes, laughing forcefully. Why? What makes you ask such a strange question? The doctor called you Alpha. My father taught me. Only werewolves speak to each other that way. It's okay if you are. I won't hate you if you aren't normal. I promise, I showed him, and he started to smile. You already knew, I guess that's a bit relieving. He trailed off, his smile growing, and he slowly took the materials from my hands, setting them onto the far corner of the bed. But you want to know what he might have forgotten to mention? I titled my head, and he suddenly restrained my arms, pulling me on top of him, and I felt a jolt of fear tighten my body. However, it faded into the warmth I love after realizing he wasn't trying to hurt me. We are very territorial, he smirked, flipping us to our sides and pressing his forehead to mine, all while keeping a firm, yet gentle hold on my wrists. And do you know what happens to trespassers? I shook my head, never prying my eyes away from his, as I waited for him to answer. Out of nowhere, he moved his hands to my ribs and started tapping his fingers rapidly into me. They get attacked. I flopped around laughing so hard, I could barely catch my breath, not understanding what he was doing. Regardless, I loved how good it's making me feel. But he came to an abrupt stop, allowing me to recollect myself from laughing. And I looked at him, my smile still lingering from his so-called attack. My heart skipped a few beats, in anticipation of what he will do next, though something told me it wasn't going to be bad, and I decided to put my complete trust in it. Sometimes we are intrigued by the trust bars, and want no harm to come to them. He added a look of seriousness found his features, and my smile faded away. His hand slowly raised to my face and I closed my eyes, feeling the warm roughness of his palm touch my cheek. I found them incredibly comforting, despite the immense pain they could effortlessly inflict. We call them mates, he finalized, sounding held back, as though he wasn't sure he could, or I should say that. I reopened my eyes to look at him, my smile returning, and I pointed back and forth at us. He must have known my question because he nodded, his charming smile also returning, which caused an explosion of tingles to flow through every vein in my body. The light from the window burned through my eyelids, and I turned my head, opening my eyes to find I was moved lower on the bed, with blankets over me. Axel was gone and I frowned, and spotting a piece of paper on the pillow next to mine, I reached over and picked it up, blinking to clear my vision, and to give my eyes time to adjust, before I was actually able to read it. I'll be back soon. Until then, Blaine will be in the other room, ready and willing to assist you if you need anything. Do whatever you wish. A smile found my lips at the heart and I sat up, unsure of what to do while I waited. That was until my gaze landed on the bathroom door. I should get another shower. But what if he thinks I'm too greedy, after already having one this month? No, he wouldn't. But he's swallowing roughly. I decided to stand up and get a better look at the objects on the dresser. I grabbed the brush and the toothbrush, leaving everything else and heading into the bathroom. I want to look pretty when he gets back. I set down the objects and turned to the tub, vaguely remembering to turn the knobs until the water came out warm. That's when I looked around me feeling paranoid. Before taking off the shirt and stepping in, I closed the translucent glass door and pulled the nozzle between the hot and cold. In curiosity, jumping back with a loud gasp, the water stopped coming out of the faucet and came from above me, landing on my back. My still healing ankle cracked under the extreme pressure, and I crashed to the floor, wincing in pain. The Luna door burst open and I widened my eyes, sliding the glass open a crack to see Blaine, frozen in his place, seemingly horrified. Oh, gee, damn it, of course you're naked. Are you okay? He squeaked, covering his eyes, and I suddenly began to laugh at my stupidity. Blaine. Hello, Alpha Axel. Said you were here with the Luna. A woman called from the other room and I stiffened, my laughter ending abruptly. I watched her walk in the bathroom with a startled shriek. Oh my God, babe, let her shower, you fucking creep. She grabbed his arm and yanked him out of the room, closing the door behind them, as I closed the glass door with a frown. Still hearing her muffled yells. God, if I didn't know any better, I'd say you're cheating on me. As Axel, no, you keep that close of an eye on her. Her yells faded out the further they went, and I hoisted myself up, my body shaking, subconsciously at the loud tone of her voice. She wasn't yelling at me, but I continue to react like she is, even when I know she's not. Will I ever heal? I don't want to live the rest of my life like this. I picked up one of the soaps and smelled it, feeling myself calm down, with Axel's scent filling my sinuses. I miss him already. Putting a small drop of it on my palm, I lathered it over my entire body, frowning at the short blonde hairs coating my leg. Maybe if I groomed myself I'd feel better, My problem is that I don't know how. Why doesn't my mother love me? Why couldn't she have taught me the things a mother is supposed to teach? Why'd she make me this way? Why do I deserve this? I blinked away airs and washed my hair, ensuring every area on me was cleansed, the way Axel did my hair, before rinsing off and stepping out. My eyes landed on the cupboard, where he had gotten the towel last time, and I opened it, grabbing one of the many black towels and drying myself off. I turned to run back to Whitney. He had a hold of my arm in seconds. His grip was tight, painful, and cold, and like Axel's. And I instantly burst into tears, never giving up my struggle against him. He started dragging me toward an unfamiliar car, and I looked at Blaine, silently yelling out for him to get up. He never woke. Those wolves taught you spunk, didn't they? He spat icily and hugged me from behind with one arm, his salty, odd-smelling palm pressed against my nose and mouth. I tried to turn away but failed, and he opened the car door, throwing me in. My face hit the side of the center console and I winced, holding my now throbbing head, with more tears streaming down my face from the impact. I kicked the door just as he closed it, resulting in the bones in my unhealed ankle to grind together in an excruciatingly painful way, making me cry harder. Just go the fuck to sleep already, I snapped as he entered the car, and my vision began to blur. My world was spinning, and I felt it get progressively worse. I gotcha, he smirked sinisterly, raising his hand and shaking a foreign bottle to show what he did. Except I couldn't comprehend what was happening in time, and fell limp into the seat. I want Axel letter 135, wake up. Familiar voice pierced my eardrums, and my entire body stiffened in horror, though I refused to open my eyes to see reality. As I continued to envision Axel, to not make me repeat myself, Angelica. She screamed, cracking something against the floor, and I ripped my eyes open with a flinch. See a barbed wire whip. Said, now tell me about those wolf friends of yours. She squatted down next to me, and I kept my head low, feeling myself emotionally start falling back into the girl. That was before I escaped. I jumped when a notebook and pen landed in my lap. Shakily taking them, with my eyes set on Jade's body, to make sure she wasn't moving. Tell me who's their alpha. Who controls them? She spat, shooting her now empty hand out to my throat, and I choked, widening my eyes as tears filled them. And she forced me to meet her gaze, tightening her hold. I know, you pathetic, disgusting, used poor excuse of a girl. Don't protect those disgraces, they don't care about you. Nobody would truly care about someone like you. She scoffed, glaring into my blind eye. Fine, if that's how you want to play it, I'll play. My heart was electrified, making me freeze and look down at the paper, quickly taking the pen and writing an answer, to avoid whatever she plans to do next. Axel is alpha. I showed her my hold on the notebook, revealed just how much I was trembling, so she grabbed the side, above one of my hands to steady it. Her eyes following the words. Axel Romo's Morty is their alpha. She scoffed. Her voice echoed off the walls of the basement, and the anger in her hateful heart began to grow. I sunk further into the corner, my lip quivering. How eagerly my eyes wanted to let the water out. The white wolf is their alpha, she shouted over her shoulder. They fucking had him. I could have ended this shit. Son of a bitch. Much to my surprise, she didn't raise her hands and hit me. She merely sneered and asked another question. What the hell, does someone of such powerful ranking want? If you're nothing, you can't give him anything. Yeah, that's not true. I angrily started writing, my words coming off sharp and squiggly, due to my shaking and growing rage. When I finished, I showed her with downturned, furrowed brows to emphasize my anger. I didn't get to tell you before. Those bags are full of clothes for you. My sister had gone out and bought you a few things. Until you feel comfortable enough here. He interrupted my thoughts, and I looked over at the bags. She guessed your size is based on luck, and I've got to give it to her. She's very good at it, so they should be a close fit. My gaze darted back to him, and I scrunched my eyebrows. He has a sister. Was it the woman that called me names? Could someone as sweet as him have a sister? As nasty as her? You haven't met her. She came by while you were unconscious in the hospital. Because I didn't want her to overwhelm you. If it says anything, Whitney is her best friend. He appeared embarrassed, averting his eyes to the floor with a neck rub. And I smiled at how cute it looked. He's a very strong, muscular man who fights for what he loves. He definitely looked like the type to feel emotions, such as nervousness, embarrassment, or even pain. Yet, he does, which makes him much more real to me. I slid off the bed and walked over to the bags, opening them enough to see inside, and my smile widened upon seeing sealed packages of underwear. My smile then faltered in confusion when I spotted a small, triangular fabric with straps. So, I lifted it out of the bag and turned to him with a frown. I swear I've seen one of these before, to bigger size. He widened his eyes and rubbed his face. I'll have. Gabby help you with that. Nodding, I put it back in the bag and grabbed a black flared skirt. With an excited gasp, adding it to the growing pile in my arms, and digging for a top. Pulling out a white t-shirt and spitting to face him. Did you find what you wanted? He smiled and I nodded. Looking down at the pile in my grasp. Picking whatever I want to wear is so fun. I hope I get to do it more often. I'll let you do what you need, he said. Walking over and reaching past me. Pulling out a shirt from the dresser. And sliding it over his head. I watched intently as he covered himself. And a slight frown tugged at my lips. Just knock on the bedroom door when you're done. And I'll come get you. Take your time, okay? I nodded and he brushed some hair out of my face, before smiling down at me. Then, turning away and leaving the room, I noticed on his way out that the shirt hugged his arms, and collar becoming loose below his pecs, where it hit his six-pack. I didn't even know just how muscular he was until now. I think he should walk around without a shirt. From now on, clearing my thoughts of him. I took off the dress and looked down at myself. My body was dirty again. And I don't want him to be driven away from me for being unhygienic. I also don't know if I am allowed to take yet another shower, after already having so many already. I reluctantly walked into the bathroom with my things, setting them down, and quietly turning on the water so he didn't hear. I'll just have to make it fast so he doesn't notice. My hair is still damp from earlier, so I'm sure he won't see a difference. I really want him to like me. I can't ruin this letter. 130E5. I pulled the skirt up and lifted my gaze to the mirror. Insecurities immediately flooding in, after seeing the white t-shirt. Wasn't long enough to cover my still bruised and scarred stomach. However, it still fit. It also is a real snag, revealing just how flat-chested and skinny I am. I don't like this shirt. Skirt, on the other hand, covered everything below my belly button, ending just above mid-thigh. With built-in shorts underneath, I felt comfortable in it and like the top. Maybe if I had boobs and a little more fat it'd be cute. Except I don't. I opened my eyes tiredly, raising my hand to my neck. Upon remembering what was happening, the frown crossed my lips when I saw I was alone, and hearing only the sounds of the machines around me and the voices in the hall. That's when realization kicked in, and I shot into a sitting position, looking down at my body with wide eyes, before darting my gaze around the room. Everything appeared so advanced, bright, and extra detailed. I slid off the bed, looking down at the metal tray sitting next to it, that held syringes and a cloth. Spotting my reflection and gasping, I jumped away before reluctantly looking back at it. My blind eye was identical to the other I can see again. I smiled hearing the door open. So, I turned to it and watched Wayne walk in, with a smile of his own. Good more he came to an abrupt stop. His smile falling in mine did the same. I scrunched my eyebrows and frowned, taking a step back against the bed in discomfort. Yuri? It's healed, he stammered, seeming surprised. Then he walked over. I felt ice wash over my veins the closer he got, and I winced when he extended his arm toward me. Stumbling over the wires behind me, I felt extremely exposed and vulnerable being alone. Oh, my apologies for startling you, Luna. He moved back, analyzing me with a frown. May I see your eye? I looked around the room, hesitantly nodding and climbing back onto the bed. He came over after pulling gloves on, and tilted my head back so the light hit my face, cautiously lifting my left eyelid, then moving to my right. This is fascinating, he mumbled, releasing me and flashing a reassuring smile. Are you feeling any discomfort by chance? I shook my head and his smile faltered again. I don't mean to sound rude, but you can speak now, man. I shook my head, my lip quivering, as my body became hot out of nervousness, and tears filled my eyes. He took the hint and nodded without saying anything, more looking to the door, just as this gorgeous woman walked in. Her eyes met mine, and I instantly recognized her as Axel's sister. How's she doing? Is she experiencing any strange side effects? She walked in with a smile, raising her hand and waving at me. Wayne cleared his throat and pulled off the gloves. Before responding, things have gone too well, he sighed, beginning to wash his hands. However, his words made her frown. Their mates Wayne destined to be together forever. They fit together like puzzle pieces, and stick together like magnets. Obviously, his blood is expected to heal her, without any negative consequences. Where one lacks, the other compensates. She laughed nervously, and I felt my heart start to beat faster. My anxiety raising at the sound of their worried tones. I understand the mate bond, Miss Gabby. He paused, drying his hands, and pushing his glasses further up the bridge of his nose, his eyes jumping between us. What I fear is his wolf may be able to access her mind, and communicate with her. Excuse me. Oh shit, she gasped, her beautiful silver eyes widening. Axel will fuck you up so bad. If he finds out his wolf can talk to her. Dax is so intense this will humiliate him. She burst into loud cackles, covering her mouth to muffle them and keeling over, clutching her stomach. I didn't say for certain, there is only a possibility. I need to run a few tests to be completely sure before I release her. Just don't say anything to the alpha until this is figured out. It groaned, opening one of the drawers. It had an abrupt, sharp tightening. Pain began throbbing in my head and forced me to look down with closed eyes. Why are you just standing there? You're his right hand, so go help him, she yelled at Blaine, and he widened his eyes, dashing off after him, and making me want to do so as well. I can't believe they fucking lost them. Axel really needs better sidekicks. Cause Blaine and Danny just aren't cutting it. She sighed in annoyance, and Wayne seemed to be still collecting himself from what was said, nodding in much delay to her words. Alpha Axel will find them. Just give him a few hours at most, he replied, recollecting himself fully, before heading toward the open doorway and stopping. Oh, and you're free to go, was all he said, returning to his walk, which left the two of us standing here. That's when the red lights turned off, and everything returned to normal. So, do you want to hang out with me? She grinned, not at all concerned about the fact that Axel and Blaine are currently out, risking their lives. Is she that certain they'll make it back? She clearly doesn't know how evil Jade is. I nodded and she snatched my hand, dragging me out of the room and through the halls, before exiting the building altogether. We can get to know each other and play some games. I'll see what Whitney is up to. If you're fine with her joining, this is going to be fun. She grinned, pulling me along into the large mansion. I vaguely remember it wasn't as crowded as it was before. I looked at everyone while we passed, noticing they bowed their heads when we came into view. and kept them down until we walked past. "Oh shit," I heard her mumble just as we came to a halt, and I stumbled into her. "Hello, Gabby," a sweet voice greeted, earning a growl out of her. "Early," she replied bitterly, sliding over to shield me from direct contact. "What's a beautiful woman? This is our lovely Luna, isn't it?" she asked, averting her gaze to me and smiling brightly. Her lips were covered in matte black. Her eyelids were a sparkly white fading into a black. Her lashes were thick and very long. And her black, silky straight hair came down to her hips. Her skin is lighter than most girls I've seen so far, which makes the black stand out much more. "It's definitely her color." "Quit the act," Gabby growled, narrowing her eyes at her. "Axel told you to stay away from her, don't be an idiot." "You're very beautiful," I intervened. Watching them turn their heads to look at me, Carly's neutral expression lit up, her mouth forming a huge smile, as Gabby grimaced with a scoff. "Oh, WA, aren't you just the sweetest?" "Hey, what do you say I give you a makeover? Then you can go hang out with her." She continued to grin while Gabby shook her head. "Absolutely not. Let's just go." She tried to pull me, but I stood my ground, frowning. "Awesome, come on." Carly snatched me away and threw a smile over her shoulder as we walked off. "You're a fake bitch," Gabby snapped, causing us to stop, and Carly whipped around with a glare, releasing my wrist across her arms. "Excuse me," she snarled, and Gabby approached us, heading up in her face and looking down at her. She faltered a bit. However, they each remained in their spots, glaring back and forth. "I will kick your spoiled ass," she growled, shoving Carly's chest and making hers tumble back. She scoffed in response, slight fear flashing her eyes for only a brief second. "You're just saying that to scare me, because you're an alpha sister. You wouldn't actually. Don't worry, we'll protect you if anything happens." "That nothing will happen." "Whitney's just paranoid," she reassured, clicking play on the movie and digging into the bowl, full of multiple different candies. I could hardly breathe because I ate too much, too quickly. It was all so good, and I couldn't believe I never had the luxury of eating them. Who knew life could be so good? I don't watch horror movies, 'cause they have to get their ideas from somewhere. So, they are either one based on true events or two. There are people out there do have these disturbing ideas going through their heads. Either way, I don't feel safe," she defended, taking another bite out of the chocolate bar. "In her hands, who watches these for enjoyment anyway?" Why would anyone want to be scared? Our lives are scary enough. Javi shot her a look as I watched the two girls on the television do what we were doing. They were having a sleepover and also watching something disturbing. The parallel situation intrigued me, and I blocked out Gabby and Whitney's conversation, gluing my full attention on the movie. One of the girls were freaked out, while the other was brushing it off, until the phone abruptly rang, making both girls become spooked. Suddenly a loud ringing came from reality and I jumped, whipping my head to look over. I saw someone's phone ringing on the nightstand. Nope, no, fuck this, fuck that, fuck off and fuck yo. And not playing these games with you guys. You know I hate this. Whitney yelled, jumping off the bed, and Gabby grabbed her and yanking her back down. "I'm not playing." She panicked, averting her gaze to me. "Are you doing this?" I furrowed my eyebrows. "How would I?" "All right," she mumbled, screaming alongside Whitney. When someone knocked on the door, I watched them hug each other tightly, fear filling their expressions, and I frowned. Standing up, I walked over to the door and opened it, my frown deepening. When I didn't see anyone standing outside, Angel shut the door. Whitney shrieked, both of them trembling violently against each other. So I closed the door and walked back over. Her phone rang again and they screamed, squeezing each other until their bodies turned pale. I sat on the edge of the bed, not understanding why nothing is scaring them. It's just a phone and nobody's outside the door. Why are they freaking out? There's nothing around to be afraid of. More knocks thundered against the door. Right after the phone stopped ringing, and they shoved their heads into each other's shoulders. I slid off the bed and went back over to the door, opening it, anticipating the hallway to be empty just like before. In my momentum unthought, panicked horror upon seeing someone standing there. I threw my arm out and let out a tiny squeak in surprise. Oh my God, I heard Whitney wail, snapping me back from my frozen state of terror. To see Blaine holding his face, aggressively mumbling incoherent words to himself. You just punched him in the face. Abby came up from behind me, no longer scared but instead laughing hysterically. Oh my God, you're amazing. I guess it really is your instinct to protect us. A human, or not protect. He wasn't even doing anything. I felt myself stiffen. When I saw blood leaking through his fingers, a previous fear transferring to me. What the hell? He groaned, keeping his hand over his nose with another grunt. What did I do? I am so sorry. I exhaled, struggling to keep my tears at bay, while taking a step back, with full expectation he was going to hit me in return. Angel, what's been up with you? We were expecting you to get here a lot earlier. Tabby shared a look with Whitney, both women shaking their heads at each other. We know how Axel is, and he's never went to his office so late before. What on earth did you do to him? I felt my cheeks flush as I looked down at my lap, in embarrassment over last night's actions, catching a glimpse of Whitney pulling up a chair next to me, while Gabby went straight for the refrigerator. Yeah, he was acting weirdly nice. Normally, he's highly intimidating to be around in the mornings. If we even consider it morning anymore, she added, turning her head to look at the digital clock on the wall. That read to 21. Tell us the tea, Gabby sang, snatching an open container, with silverware sticking out of the top, before smelling it. But first, does anyone know whose this is? She asked, glancing back in the fridge, and pulling out a note, and furrowing her eyebrows as she read it. Do not touch my yogurt. I'll be back for it in 30 minutes. And it better be there. I'm serious, do not touch my food. Yes, I'm talking to you, Gabby. Her expression appeared, offended by the words she just read, and she looked up at us. Well, I wasn't going to eat it, but now I will. She crumpled the paper, then began digging into the blue substance. Do tell, she added, her mouth full of the yogurt, just before she swallowed and took another huge bite, taking a seat across from us and leaning closer. Expectantly, there's nothing to really say. I trailed off, staring at the design in the counter, with a small smile at the memory. Asterisk. He walked out of the bathroom and stared down at me, with gleaming, bright eyes and a lopsided smile, appearing love-struck, which made him much more enticing to stare at. His shirtless figure already had me in a daze. Now I think I might just faint. How could someone like him, a strong, masculine, powerful, inhuman man, who could melt the Arctic with just one dazzling smile, it scares me by just how much trust I felt for him after such a short period of time, by being under those adoring silver eyes. Somehow made that fear. The things you're doing to me, he said quietly, walking over and sliding into bed next to me. No, Axel, the things you're doing to me. I slightly regret brushing my teeth, because the minty scent masks the one I had of his when we kissed, and I eagerly want to do it again. I really like you, I whispered, feeling him inch closer and turn on a thigh, draping his arm around my waist, and pulling me to his chest, my entire side pressed against his smooth torso, and I smiled uncontrollably. I really like you too, gorgeous, he answered. I turned my head to the side and stared over at him from my place on the pillow. Your hands are very rough, compared to the rest of your body, I pointed out, my smile growing when he didn't respond. He merely smiled at me, as though he didn't hear a word that just came out of my mouth. Why are you staring at me like that? I giggled uncontrollably, biting my lip to silence myself, with embarrassment flooding through me at the way I sounded. Wow, he breathed in his eyes twinkling and his smile grew. Your smile is the most precious thing I've ever seen. It makes your beautiful hazel eyes sparkle with spirit. Nothing makes me happier than seeing you beginning to thrive the way you deserve love. I don't want to be, I mumbled, latching onto his shirt with the urge to take it off. That I ignored. It was hard. I know, Angel, don't worry. I'm going to help you, he replied, his jaw clenching, and he appeared bothered. Get her out of here before anyone else senses her, Whitney stated, standing up at the same time as Gabby. Do you want us to take her so you can get a grip? Abby asked, making Whitney face palm, and he growled, his chest rumbling under my hands, and I shivered. I can handle it, he answered, taking a moment to breathe before he started carrying me away. It was simply too hot to care. Laying my face over his collar, then closing my eyes to focus on his cool touch. Don't let me go, I whimpered, a small shiver rolling down my spine. I'll never let you go, he said softly, but I was unable to answer due to the hot, tightening pains in my chest and between my legs. To the end, I squirmed in his hold, panicking when I felt my body being set down. The heat jumped up many degrees, the more space he put between our bodies. Then I squeezed his shirt to prevent him from letting me go, glancing out at the world around us, only to find we were back in his bedroom, sitting on his bed. And here for whatever you need, he assured, except his body language insinuated otherwise. The amount of tension it held. Take off your shirt, I mumbled, pulling at the material. Your skin cools me down, please, I begged, wincing at the third burst of heat, which made him reclaim his arms and slip the shirt off. I laid against him but felt no relief. So, I carelessly yanked mine off and pressed our top hats together. His eased the heat immensely. Sweat that was covering my body evaporated into my skin at an abnormal rate. Oh God, he breathed, squirming a bit underneath me, then refusing to replace his hands around my now almost nude torso. He clenched his jaw on off, closing his eyes and furrowing his eyebrows with small, nearly inaudible groans, making him sound like the one in pain. He leaned backward so the pillows were beneath his back, the headboard pressed into his shoulder blades. The position should have been relaxing, but his body was still so tense. I tried to force myself to fall asleep, but the heat came back after a few seconds, causing me to whimper and squeeze my legs together. The previous sweat that disappeared came back, and I winced, squirming around in discomfort. He groaned, his hands squeezing the blankets. It'll be over soon, okay? You're going to be all right, and nodded, frowning. What's happening to me? It's hard to explain right now, he strained. But your body desires sexual intimacy. Not with just anyone, though. If only your mate's touch will make you better. Anyone else's will feel like a nasty burn. And that's why if nobody's touching you, it'll be extremely uncomfortable. Females go through this, so they'll seek their mate's touch, inevitably forcing them to have sex when the discomfort. Once marked, you'll never experience it again, because it ties you to your partner. To ensure you'll never be disloyal. And if you try, the pain will be unbearable. But why? I whimpered, looking up at him, knowing my face must have been dark. Reedon's slightly glistening. Because werewolves are different when it comes to bonds. We're made to be loyal. It's in our nature as wolves, the ancestors to the dog family, which are known among humans for their unwavering loyalty. More heat consumed me, and I released a small cry, lowering my head as I curled into a fetal position. His hands were back on me within a second, feeling like ice on the skin. That felt over 1,000 degrees. Axel Morty's POV. Her soft voice eased my brain as her words whirled around my head. and made my wolf whine restlessly. I was so overwhelmed by everything she had just told me. It was hard to decide what I should be feeling. And frankly, there were too many emotions I was flipping through. That was preventing me of having the capability to properly respond. I'm so angry, sad, and lost. I want to rip everyone, whoever even looked at her wrong, into pieces. It enrages and saddens me, knowing she was so carelessly mistreated, as if she isn't the only girl in the world to look, feel, and act the way she does, let alone be seen as a living being. If anything, she's the most remarkable girl I've ever met, and nobody will ever come close to being her. She's so perfect. It feels almost wrong to touch her, because I fear I'll contaminate her. I don't know what to do for the first time in my life. I know what I want and need to do. I also know what she wants me to do. And they're on opposite ends of the spectrum. Looking down at her, I realized she was asleep. Her body was always light, which made it difficult to pinpoint when she was dead weight and when she wasn't. Blaine Danny be in my office by the time I get there. I linked unable to pry my eyes off of her beautiful, sleeping face. She always looks so worried, and I'm not sure she knows it yet. When she sleeps, or her features fall neutral and really emphasize her beauty. I'll never point it out though, because that alone will make it worse. Besides, if she still appears distressed, it means she still feels that way somewhere in her. I will do everything in my power to take away all of her worries. With much struggle, I made the decision to lay her on the bed and stand up, except I felt terrible, knowing I was about to leave her again, and I couldn't seem to move from my spot. Change of plan come over. I'm liking where this is going, Blaine replied flirtatiously, and I rolled my eyes, withholding a growl. God, I seriously hate him sometimes. Dude, you just made me holler out laughing. I thought I was alone, but I wasn't. Ray's kid is now crying for dear life. 'Cause I scared the shit out of him. Annie responded, and I face palmed. They're idiots, and I mean serious. In need of mental help. Catastrophic idiots. Why didn't he teach him about mind linking? I'd shit myself too if a grown man suddenly started laughing. For no apparent reason. He will officially be afraid of you for the rest of his life. Just wait until his wolf starts talking to him. Annie wheezed in a fit of laughter. He's not teaching him because he might not ever be able to mind link. I snarled at them, interrupting their conversation and taking a deep breath before I said, much crueler words than he expected, yet dreaded mind link popped in my mind right after. I apologize for disrupting you, Alpha, but I need to have a word with you about your Delta. Right now would be best. I'm going to be talking to him, if you don't mind meeting me at my house, I replied, cutting off the connection. Just as I heard a knock on the front door. Angelica Winters, POV, can I speak to you, Ray? Axel cleared his throat and I looked up at him, noticing he was giving my father the same look my mother always gave me. I was confused for a moment before remembering. Ray was his nickname. It's what he preferred alone, he added icily, his eyes darkening. Then I put my hand on his face, pulling his deadly stare away from my father and onto me. Please don't yell at him, I mumbled, watching his features soften, and I gently rubbed my thumb across his stubble. He didn't know. I frowned slowly, dropping my hand back into the small space between our abdomens, where I had my other one. Then I began fiddling with them. His eyes drilled into mine and my frown deepened. Okay, he finally answered, leaning in on kissing my forehead, a smile moving off of him, and he stood up, leaving the room with my father following dreadfully. As soon as the door closed, Donnie exhaled wildly. I need to get this off my chest, he announced, earning Blaine's attention as well. Angelica, I sincerely apologize for calling you hot, he said in a loud whisper, using his hand to shield his mouth, as if that had prevented anyone from hearing it. Yeah, what? Blaine's voice jumped 10 octaves higher, and I smiled at the way it sounded. He hushed, his face turning red as he kept glancing to the door. Verfulsy, Axel will turn me into Danielle if he finds out. It's not Axel you should worry about, I added, feeling my cheeks heat up when they looked at me, and I felt my throat burn, my palms sweat, and I avoided their eyes. I don't like being the center of attention. For the love of everything holy, don't tell Gabby. Danny wailed, rushing over and dropping to his knees next to the bed beneath me. My eyes widened, and he tore my hands apart by grabbing one, hurling it above his head. After he lowered himself in a bow, "My Luna, I will forever be indebted to you. If this remains secret." I giggled at his behavior, pulling my hand away from his and scooting over to get off the bed. "I don't tell secrets," I assured him, sliding off of the bed, yet my leg was numb, which sent me toward the floor. He caught me efficiently and I gasped, not because I was expecting to hit the floor, but because when he grabbed me, my body kept falling and the shirt rolled up, exposing everything up to my ribs. His left hand was squeezing the piece of the shirt under my armpit, while the other was completely cupped over my breast. At that moment, a door opened and we looked over in unison, watching Axel enter, but freeze upon seeing our positions. His eyes locked onto his hands and darkened, a loud growl emitting from his chest. That made Danny rip away from me with a nervous laugh. And I fell anyways. Alpha, he grinned nervously as Axel began walking over. "Wow, you have such terrible timing, really. It's kind of funny. Because this isn't what it looks like." She actual EERIK. He released a shrill, piercing shriek when Axel roughly shoved his back to the wall and pinned him there with his forearm. She added, though it sounded like a question, and he winced as if preparing to be hit. I stood up in alarm, watching them intently. "So, I told her we don't have any pigs." Danny laughed, looking around at us. Yet his grin faltered when he saw nobody was laughing. Except him, right? Robbie trailed off awkwardly, looking around. "So, does somebody else have anything to say?" "Homie," Whitney grinned, jumping up from her spot next to Blaine on the log. The fire crackled and the flames waved around, illuminating her dried body for everyone to see. "I wish I looked like her. Blaine's marking me tonight." She squealed in excitement and he grinned at her. Hubby squealed as well and ran over, almost falling in the fire, when she engulfed her in a rough hug. Is marking someone a big deal? I looked up at Axel, seeing him look down to meet my eyes and pull me closer to his chest. "Very much beautiful. It's our version of marriage." He smiled lightly, sending a blush to my cheeks, and I sheepishly mirrored it, unable to avert my gaze. How cute." He looked under the light of the fire. "How do you mark someone?" "I asked you bite into their neck and make them bleed." Connie answered for him, causing me to jump in surprise and whip my head to look at him. I had almost forgotten he was still here. "No, idiot, don't talk about things you don't understand." "You're going to scare her into refusing it." Blaine chuckled and drubbed his mate's thigh, who was now sitting on his lap, then looked over at me. "Don't listen to him. It's not as bad as it sounds, or else nobody would do it." I nodded slowly, coming to terms with the fact Danny is over-dramatic. This isn't the first time he's blown something out of proportion. "Yeah, but you have to be at your most vulnerable with each other. Otherwise it'll scar horribly instead of beautifully." "It's weird. I don't really remember the details either. Mating Academy taught us too much about it in such a short time frame." Gabby chimed in, furrowing her eyebrows and dropping her gaze down on the fire. "Something about the intimacy, doing something to the bond. Not sure entirely my mom can actually explain." "Absolutely not," Axel suddenly snarled, silencing Gabby and tightening his hold, as if to protect me from her. "Why doesn't he want me meeting his mother?" "I forgot, sorry," she mumbled, lowering her head in guilt. And I felt uneasy with the newly found tension in the air. Am I embarrassing to be with? Everyone looked awkward, as if they knew what the issue was. And I felt left out, coldness churning in my stomach. As I scanned everyone, with hope one of them would at least tell me, "I didn't. Why can't I meet her?" I blurted. The confidence I envisioned in my head was non-existent in my tone, and it was very degrading. Am I just not pretty enough? Is my body too scarred, weak, and skinny? Axel sighed, dropping his head into the crook of my neck. With a soft growl, "My parents aren't exactly welcoming to humans. More so my mom than my dad. It's just not a good idea. You don't need that negativity after everything you've gone through. I want you to feel safe and comfortable here. Not paranoid and stressed." I nodded in acceptance, trying not to take personal offense. Knowing his parents hate me, before even getting to know me, I should be used to the feeling. However, the fact it was his family made me feel like I did something wrong. What if he's just saying that so he didn't have to tell me my body was embarrassing? Is that why he wants me to wear multiple articles of clothing around others? Mom, look what I made at school." I giggled, unfolding the picture and turning it toward her. It's a fluffy white dog just like in my dreams. "This is me," I grinned, tapping the girl holding his paw. "Really? Let me see." She smiled, taking the picture from my grasp. As I smiled up at her proudly, she suddenly pulled out a lighter, causing my heart to drop. When she lifted the flame to the corner of the paper and lit it afire, holding it right in front of my face, while I helplessly watched the drawing I worked several weeks on turn into nothing. Tears welled in my eyes watching her release the corner, the paper burning out before it had time to reach the floor. "Now your dog's dead. That's why you should never fall in love with something. It's gone before you know it," she said coldly, shoving past me, then making her way toward the exit of the room. It was ugly anyways. I fell to the ground where tiny ashes were. Ding loudly. At the time I calmed and raised my head, the room was no longer new, but deteriorated. It looked the way it did when I left, and I also noticed I wasn't 10 anymore. "Get away from me!" someone screamed, sending chills through me at the familiarity of their voice. So I turned hesitantly. It was me. My blood then ran cold as my gaze fell onto the teary-eyed little girl I was screaming at. She cowered down with pure fear, shaking through her the way I used to, sobbing hysterically. "I'm so sorry. You weren't even supposed to exist. This is your fault. You're a mistake. Don't talk to her that way," I yelled. But it appeared my words fell upon deaf ears. "I didn't know," the girl screamed, blocking her face like she expected to be hit, and I ran over to intervene. As soon as I grabbed my wrist to stop it, the world around me blacked out. A second before I blinked and my vision returned. Yet, everything changed. My heart tightened. After seeing, I was the only one standing in front of the little girl. She was now on the floor, still sobbing and holding her dark red face. While mumbling apologies and trembling, I looked down at my reddened palm, and my stomach twisted with nausea. No, I would never hurt a child. I would never hurt anyone. "Do you still love me, Mommy?" She hiccuped and I looked down at her, tears finding my eyes, and she slowly lifted her head to meet my gaze. My heart shattered, feeling the tears spew down my face, and my body grew weak. Her dull silver eyes were full of despair. "I didn't mean to hurt Daddy." As soon as the words left her mouth, everything around me fell apart, and I watched her disappear. I widened my eyes hearing her giggles behind me, and I whipped around to find her. She was no longer crying. Instead, she was playing with an older boy. I recognized the area as the yard, outside of the pack house. "There's J8N, get inside now." Blaine's voice appeared behind me, and I watched the children stop to look at him. With worried eyes, they came running without question, until the girl gasped, gripping her hand from the boy and turning back. "Wait, I need Bailey," she yelled, her eyes locking onto the stuffed animal. "I can't take it anymore. Something seems very different with you. Gabby dropped her hands to her desk loudly, looking at me through the reflection of the mirror, and a focused expression found her face. She released the makeup in her hands and turned to me, inhaling deeply. You smell like Axel. Then you know what, like him. The only time that happens is if you had sex or he. She trailed off, her eyes roaming each side of my neck. Her face dropped and she suddenly wretched. Oh God, forget I said anything. She grimaced, another retch emitting from her. Then she covered her mouth. Apparently everyone had sex last night. It must have been that full moon, she mumbled, her eyes glancing at me, and she shuddered. I could have lived without knowing. My brother stuck it to you. Honestly, it's all I see when I look at you now, August. You were so innocent. What we did was sex. Why would my mother scream at my father? That he should have had sex with her. If it was deadly like she told me, why did she say it'll make me a whore? I looked down at my lap, swallowing to eat. Ease the burn in my throat. She said that because sex is the reason my father left her. I understand now. I'm sorry I didn't know that it upset you. She spoke and I looked at her, shaking my head with a small smile. It's not you, I reassured. Just as a knock came overheard, and she growled, finishing up her mascara and averting her attention to it. She opened her mouth to call out but froze, causing another knock to hit the door. Sounding more impatient, and she jumped up. I widened my eyes when she came over and pulled me off the bed, shoving me toward the bathroom in panic. What's happening? Just as I was about to enter, the door swung open, revealing an older, beautiful woman standing next to an older man. I was stunned by the resemblance he had to Axel, only snapping out of it when Gabby cursed under her breath. Mom, Dad, how nice of you to randomly drop by and just barge in. Without waiting for my answer, she smiled, yet it seemed forced, and the couple didn't reply. All their piercing eyes remained on me. Who's your new friend, Gabby? Her mother shifted her gaze onto her, disapproval mixed with slight distaste, finding her features. Why do you have a human within the pack? Is your brother aware of these? Cat is enough, honey. She can be friends with whoever. Besides, we need not worry over one young human. The man shot her a look and she scowled. Krabby was squeezing me tightly in obvious discomfort, slowly easing me behind her to block me from direct contact. I frowned, fidgeting nervously at the way their presence made me feel. Where did you even find her? She looks diseased. The woman scoffed and I flinched at her words, clinging onto Gabby's shirt with forming tears. I looked down at myself, suddenly feeling disgusted with how skinny I was. Again, a strong urge to strip, then slide into oversized clothes and curl into a corner. Mom, Gabby snarled, reaching back and putting her arm around me, as if she felt my tightening grip. Haley, the man snapped, narrowing his eyes at who I'm assuming is his mate. Ugh. She brushed him off and crossed her arms. Her eyes locked on me. We don't take strays, she added coldly. I'm sure Axel won't like to hear. He's already aware she's his mate. Abby growled out, making a deadly silence fill the air around us. White furs zipped by, and I broke out of my state of shock, watching the two wolves roll around, biting each other and growling loudly. Blood quickly splattered in the grass, and I couldn't tell from who. They were moving so fast it made me dizzy. Calix was suddenly thrown into the tree next to them, and Axel snarled at him, watching as he rolled to his paws and shook off the debris. Snarling right back, I noticed many blood patches on Axel's one-spear fur, but it didn't look like his. So, I averted my gaze to Calix, only able to see the blood on his blonde fur. That's when he jumped, unsuccessfully latching his jaws onto Axel, because he stepped aside, using his paw to push Calix's face into the dirt, and making him take a huge chomp out of the ground. His seemed to anger him, because he shoved Axel's paw away with his own and could dirt out unexpectedly. Whipping around and achieving what he was trying to do, his canines dug into Axel's neck and he threw him down, folding him against the ground with his jaws, which forced him to lay belly up, kicking his hind legs wildly. Axel held onto his head with his claws, as if he was trying to pull him off. Yet Calyx was unmoving. That's when his flailing hind legs reached his side, and he managed to kick him over, causing Calyx to fall and drag Axel with him. The positions reversed, so now Axel was pinning him to the grass. However, Calyx kept his jaws on his neck, despite being the one on his back. Axel snarled, digging his paws into his neck until he yelped, and finally released, flattening his ears and no longer trying to fight. This was the first time Calyx didn't look terrifying. He just looked like a sad dog. Blaine and Danny unexpectedly walked past me, and I jumped in surprise, squeezing my hands and taking a step back next to the tree. While I watched Axel step off Calyx, he wasn't able to get up. By the time Blaine held him down, and Danny strapped something around his head, receiving a loud growl. As he struggled against them to get free, Blaine tightened his hold, which stopped his squirming, and Danny cursed, tightening the straps and making him whimper. I frowned hearing him snarl again, in a way that sounded threatening. I felt slightly worried for their safety, until they moved and revealed the silver muzzle. He strapped over his snout. It was connected to leather straps. The back constricted around his skull, girdle around his jaws burned through his fur, and the sight of his red, sizzling skin made me scrunch my face in disgust. He snarled again and glared at Axel, whipping his head to face Blaine. Just as he clipped a collar around his neck, he jumped back as though he forgot about the muzzle, and Calyx seemed to have forgotten as well, yelping loudly from the silver cage, applying more pressure onto his snout. At his attempt to bite, Axel snarled at his brother, while Blaine and Danny began dragging him toward the houses. By the leash, he fought back, but they ruthlessly yanked him each step. I caught a glimpse of thick gloves over their hands that prevented skin contact with the silver chain, and furrowed my eyebrows. However, my questions became blank after I heard footsteps and turned, frowning deeply at the forming pain in my heart. Axel was walking away without any acknowledgement. Toward me, he's leaving me. I ran after him, thinking maybe he assumed I was following, until I saw his ears flatten and his hackles raised. When I reached his side, this reaction stabbed into me and I slowed to a stop, a lump forming in my throat. As he continued walking without even looking at me, could I do something wrong? Dawn, she wind, yanking her hand back and rubbing it where the redness had taken over. Let it go, Haley. You heard him, the man said, his eyes drilling into Axel's, and they seemed to share a very intense, uncomfortable stare off. Rule no. 6 if an alpha feels that his or her mate's life is threatened and / or unsafe, they may take any course of action listed. Eliminate the threat through death. Imprison the threat for life or banish the threat. Nobody replied before a shirtless man came running in the room, with wide eyes, pointing outside and breathing heavily. The tension in the room thickened in an instant, and Axel held me tighter. Liam, what's going on? He asked, but it was quickly regretted. Hunters are here. May have Gabby and Whitney. Shania and Tyler aren't answering their mind link. Either I think they found out we were watching them. He panicked. We gathered the women and children in the basement. But I don't go. I'll meet you out there. Axel snarled, turning his attention to his parents as Liam ran away. All I want you to do is watch her. Can you handle that? Yes. I'll make sure she's fine, his father answered. I felt my body being moved and I widened my eyes, feeling Axel's tingly touch disappear and be replaced with a warm, cold hand on my bicep. We have to get to the basement, he said. Tugging me along by the arm, I frowned, glancing back, just in time to see Axel walking out the front door. I turned back ahead and allowed him to tug me down the hall next to the stairs and toward a strange-looking door. We entered and starting descending more stairs. Her room was filled with a lot of women and children, so I was very surprised when I saw it was fairly spacious. I don't want to go down here, I whispered, pulling my arm on, trying to turn back. But his grip was too strong. My lungs tightened and I grew lightheaded, my eyes scanning the huge crowd, which worsened my panic. There's so many people. Please, sir, I can't. I choked myself silent, and the gasp I sucked in after caught his attention, because he came to a stop. As we neared the bottom, Axel's mother looked at me with a scoff and continued on, leaving me alone on the staircase with his father, his expression filled with genuine concern. And I shook my head. Please, don't make me, I whispered. He frowned. It's not safe to leave. I apologize, he stated. Scanning my face, then looking down the stairs. Close your eyes and I'll guide you to a secluded area. How does that sound? I nodded, gripping onto his forearm. After he released my bicep and I closed my eyes, relying strictly on his arm to keep me from falling. As we walked, I kept telling myself it was just us, and felt myself start calming. Only feeling his arm helped me believe it. Luna, a familiar voice giggled, and I opened my eyes, hugging him to a halt, as I turned to see the little boy I met from earlier, come running up to me, alongside an unfamiliar boy. Hi. I smiled uncontrollably, letting go of his forearm, and kneeling down to the boy's level. I opened my arms and they both decided to crash into me, squeezing me in a tiny group hug. This is Roderick, he was the puppy that knocked you down. J.A. damn. I think, giggled, and his friend nodded proudly. Luna. I heard someone mutter questioningly. So, I lifted my gaze to see. Everyone around me was staring with furrowed brows. Other mutters started filling the air. They weren't as audible, making me frown, until someone stepped to block my view. From the forming crowd of women. You can take this up with Axel. The Luna. I'll not be taking questions or meetings. As of right now. Axel's father spoke out and I smiled in relief, letting the children in my arms go. Axel, Morty's POV. I wish I could speak to her right now. I just feel incomplete not being able to respond. What the fuck is taking you so long? I mind-linked Twain, gently nudging her with my snout to keep her awake. And she winced. Fortunately, she kept still and breathed to the best of her ability. Just hold out for me a little longer, love. You're strong, my strong girl. I'm gathering supplies. It would be too dangerous to move her. Because of her size, she can't risk losing too much blood, or we will lose her. Just keep distracting her from the wound. I'm working as quickly as I can, he replied. I cut off our link to focus on blocking her from seeing the injury. Otherwise, she'd panic and make it worse. It's best she doesn't know. That way she will remain calm, to prevent any more blood loss and damage. And it's best I remain calm for her. I've never struggled so much in my life. Please, don't leave me. She wheezed, her voice breathy, and I absolutely despised how weakened she sounded. Please, I'm so sorry, she wept lightly. Don't leave me, she sniffled. I nuzzled closer, as if to tell her, I'm not going anywhere, and she squeezed tighter. You'll make me better. Won't you? You always make me better. She seemed to be starting to fight for her sentences, and I felt my hackles raise, a foreign coldness pricking my chest. I couldn't see her face due to it laying over my neck. Then it took everything in me not to move her to look, knowing she may become startled at the sudden movement, and move the blade embedded in her abdomen. Words can't describe how pissed off I am at my parents, but now is not the time to deal with them. She's my priority. Making sure she's okay comes before everything, for I was stupid to have trusted them, and they will not be getting away with this. Please don't leave me, I'm sorry. I love you, she cried. I'm so sorry, it's my fault. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I caused this. I'm so sorry. I love you, P. Please stay with me, she sobbed. Her desperate pleas were like a bullet in my lungs. And it was unbearable listening to. Especially with her strained voice. They promised she would never be hurt again, and she is. Dax was crying loudly for her, and I wasn't sure what to do. She was losing more blood by the second, and it stung my senses. Every second that passed, I felt our bond grow weaker alongside her heartbeats, and it's making me go insane and completely helpless. I think I'm okay now, she whispered so lightly, I almost missed it. It doesn't hurt anymore. I am okay, she sniffled. Not even a second later, her grip loosened and her body lost all its tension. I panicked, no longer caring about her seeing the blade. Then I got up and nudged her face with my nose. She was extremely pale and I whimpered, hating how awful this sight of her made me feel. I've never felt worse. And to feel our bond gradually tear away felt like all my insides were being ripped out slowly. I'll have to work fast. Wayne's voice filled the air, and I whipped my body to watch him approach, snarling as he dropped down on the other side of her with his box of supplies. Axe didn't like how close he was to her injured, unconscious body, but I refrained from making a stupid decision and allowed him to cut her shirt around the wound. Angelica Winters, POV. I peeked around the building, then continued walking, coming up on the steel door leading into the building and pulling it open with one hand. I held the tray of food with the other. Walking in, I went up to the last cell at the end of the hallway and plopped down on the ground. With a smile, I brought you food again, I announced, setting the tray down in front of the bars and staring into the darkness. He didn't answer, shuffling toward the door, and his hand came into the dim light of the hall. As it took the water from the cup holder on the tray, you know Axel will be pissed when he finds out that you're taking advantage of the doctor just to feed me. Yeah, maybe I frowned, looking down at my lap and fiddling with the hospital pants I was given instead of a gown. One thing you're missing, Kai Alex. I have not seen him in several days. I've been in that bed, being taken care of by Wayne for 6 days now, and I haven't seen or heard from him. He hasn't came to see me or anything. Just so you know, I appreciate what you're doing for me. He interrupted my thoughts, reluctance seeping his tone, and I could only imagine the mortified look on his face. Nobody deserves to die. Certainly not while suffering either, I replied softly, standing up and dusting myself off. But I have to go back. Dr. Wayne will be searching for me soon, I explained. He knew the routine, scooping off all the edible belongings on the tray as I picked it up and turned away. Leaving the building without another word, I eat the breakfast, then bring him the lunch. I quickly made my way back into the side door of the hospital, attempting to sneak past the receptionist, just as I always have, until her voice called out loudly, "Lunar, you're back." I wonder why Alpha Axel hasn't came to check up on his beloved mate. He wondered snidely, tapping her lips and looking me up and down. I felt disgusting next to her beauty. I stood in silence, not knowing how to answer, because I knew just as much as her when it came to Axel and his whereabouts. Oh, I know, she beamed. I looked at her desperately, my heartbeat quickening, out of eagerness for an explanation. He's been getting frisky with Carly, haven't you heard? Hard, she's so lucky, and well, you're so not. Pain hit me, but I rolled my eyes and shook it off, making my way back to the room, and not sure why I bothered entertaining her. It's quite clear she'd make up some lie just to get a reaction out of me, because I have the man she wants. However, there's a piece of me that can't shake the slightest possibility of it being true. I walked back into my room and set the tray on the table. climbing back onto the bed and frowning deeply. "How was your lunch?" Dr. Wayne walked in at that moment, and I looked up at him with hope after hearing following footsteps. Except the people walking in with him weren't who I wanted. "Hey girl, how are you doing?" Gabby asked cheerily, though her and Danny's smiles were wiped off at my deepening frown. They shared looks Dwayne noticed, pulling them to the side. He stumbled back at their closeness, flinching as she knocked him back, and he landed next to me growling. He didn't waste a second getting back onto his paws, looking at me for a moment, before averting his gaze back onto her, except her attention was directly on me. She. Constant, he shielded me, lifting her off the ground by holding her throat in his jaws, then jolting his head to the side and letting her limp body hit the ground. I gasped, covering my mouth to stop myself from crying. At the gore in front of me, there was a hollow hole in her neck and her entire throat, plus the veins were angling out the sides of his mouth. The bone itself was sitting between his top and bottom teeth. Another loud, deadly growl filled the air, and I sucked in a sharp breath, looking past "Hi, Alex" to see bright white fur approaching us. He was baring his teeth, nodding lowly while the others stepped aside for him. Alex stropped her throat and licked his lips clean, eyeing his brother unsurprisingly, taking slow steps back, as if to silently say he doesn't want to fight. Axel didn't seem to accept his submission, because he continued stalking toward him, appearing angrier each step. Nobody moved in to help. As we all watched, Alex flatten his ears and close his eyes, no longer backing away from his brother. I couldn't contain the guilt anymore and crawled over, throwing my body in between them, locking my glassy eyes onto Axel's hateful yellow ones. They were identical to Alex's the day I met him, and a chill ran through me. I exhaled, sniffling, then extended my arms to help block him. I let him out. He stopped her from killing me. I whispered shakily, lowering my arms and reaching out to him. He wasn't growling, but he was still baring his teeth, and I saw he was extremely tense. He looked like a cold killer. I was honestly afraid of him. For the first time since we met, it was in this moment that I questioned my trust. For him, he's helped Wayne hurt me. It will stop him from doing so himself. If I do something against his order, such as defend Alex. No, I can't think like this. My shaky hand found the fur over his cheek, and his black, curled lips slowly curtained over his frightening teeth. The cold look in his eyes disappeared with one blink, and he relaxed, his pupils expanding, as soon as he pulled his line of sight away from the wolf behind me and our eyes met. Please leave him alone, I said softly, moving over to look at Alex, and they locked eyes again. The tension in his body returned. Yet neither of them showed any more signs of hostility toward one another. Alex then lowered his head, lifting it to look at me a moment after. Then I let go of Axel to hug him. However, Axel didn't like my choice, because he shoved his big head between us with a snarl, and used his snout to nudge me back. I popped onto the grass and watched Alex stand, abruptly causing Axel's hackles to spring up in alarm. And he was quick to shield me with his body. His brother went from a sad puppy to a pissed-off wolf, suddenly snapping his jaws at him, just barely missing his neck. He seemed to be reacting viciously out of offense regarding Axel's choice to block me. That's when Axel nipped at him in retaliation, and he yelped, flinching away, unstiffening. Felix watched him lower his head and continued to snarl through the corner of his eye, resulting in him to bare his teeth, as though he was silently telling his brother he was about to attack again. I didn't like the familiar feeling of hatred and tension hanging in the air, so I swallowed harshly and grabbed Axel's neck, with the intention to pull him back. That just happened to be when Alex snapped. I didn't realize what was happening until pain formed in my hand, and I retracted it with a shriek, biting my cheeks and analyzing the holes from his teeth. On the front and back of my hand, there was blood gushing all down my arm. Instantly, Axel shoved Kylix into the ground, and they began fighting. Worse than before. Yelps and snarls filled the air and I panicked. Leave him alone. Immediately, Axel moved off of him and planed his ears, settling his gaze on me, unwinding softly. Alex rolled to his paws and wore a sad look, his eyes glued to my reed hand, while his nostrils flared rapidly, as if he was smelling my wound. Disconnected gazes and guilt flashed across his face. And he turned and took off running. Axel snapped his head and followed him with his eyes. Fred. I clutched the fur on his side to stop him from chasing. I felt him grow tense, like he wanted to run after his brother, until he turned to me and licked my face, averting his snout to my wounded hand, and licking it repeatedly. Quiet whines came from beside us and I glanced over, spotting everyone from before, standing in a huddled line while they stared. Heat filled my face and I dropped my head, catching sight of Carly's body and feeling even worse. That should have been me. Letter 135. I zoned out on my scarred hand, still in bewilderment that it healed so quickly. With just a few licks, how can such a gentle, caring man? I paused softly, grazing over the bite scar that looked years old. The merciless killer. I finished in a whisper, corners of my lips pulling downward. My eyes trailed up from my hand and onto the closed bathroom door, hearing the running water, where I pictured his nude, sculpted torso glistening with soap suds and liquid. Why do I feel so comfortable with someone far more powerful than my mother? I mumbled in confusion, immediately questioning my own belief. Why, after a moment of contemplating, I stood up from the bed and undressed. Walking up to the bathroom door and into the steamy room, I closed the door behind me and caught my reflection in the fogging mirror, my heart dropping into my stomach upon seeing newly formed short, dark purple lines around the outside of my breasts and over my hips. I've gained weight. Most of my bones aren't visible like they used to be, while others still are. I don't look unhealthy anymore. It's what I wanted, so why do I feel so much uglier? Angel, are you okay? Do you need something? I blinked, looking down at my body in shame, and looking at the glass door between me and Axel. Silently, I approached the door and slid it just enough to step in, closing it behind me and looking up at him to see. He froze in his spot. He stared at me with wide eyes, and I stepped closer to him, scanning the muscle definition across his body. I do feel comfortable with him, because he only harms those who are malicious against me, unlike my mother, who only harmed me, and allowed those with malicious intentions do whatever they wished. I felt ugly before stepping in. Now I feel beautiful. I feel more than just comfortable. I feel loved. I feel stepping closer. I felt my nipples lightly graze his hot chest, and they hardened from the drastic change of temperature. The contact made him unfreeze, sliding his hands over my hips and closing the little distance between our bodies. Our eye contact remained strong until he leaned down and planted his lips over mine. I felt an explosion of heated tingles fill my body and closed my eyes, feeling him pull me into the hot water with him. My hands raised to his chest, and the tingles raging through me found my heart, resulting in every negative thought that I had over the past week to simply vanish. I feel complete. His hands slid around my back up to my shoulders and down and back over my hips. I pressed my body into his and grabbed the sides of his neck, forcing myself to turn my head and break the kiss. The water continued pounding against us, and he kept me close, staring down at me with parted lips, and without care that the water ran down from his messy hair completely covering his face. Beads of water journeyed down and trickled from his jaw, hitting my collar then running between our bodies. I miss you, I whispered, laying my head over his shoulder. As he adjusted his hold around me, can I be close to you again? I liked it a lot. You already are beautiful. You can't get any closer. He chuckled lightly. I moved my head to look up at him, feeling very flushed, except I wasn't as certain. It was the hot water making me feel so sweaty. He clenched his jaw after catching my gaze, and his throat bobbed with a hard swallow, his grip around me tightening. When you look at me with eyes like that, you make it so much harder to control myself. Don't you love me? I frowned lightly, running the tip of my finger over his collarbone. What kind of question is that? Of course I do, more than you even know, he replied lowly, his deep voice purring in his throat in a way that made my stomach tingle. Then why control yourself? I want you to show me. I cupped his face and pushed myself onto my tiptoes, softly pressing my lips to his. He returned it, turning my body and pushing me against the granite shower wall. Tell me before we go any further, Angel, are you sure? He asked mid-kiss, slowing down so I could answer, but never disconnecting from me. Instead of ruining it, I deepened the kiss by biting his bottom lip and allowing my intrusive thoughts to get the best of me. He ran his hand over my waist, following the curve down to my hip, where he slid back and grazed the side of my butt, ending just below it with a grok. I gasped, grinding into him with a burning desire for more. I never thought I'd want someone to put their hands on me so badly. He suddenly lifted my leg and held it up with his forearm, holding my jaw with his other hand. As I pressed further into the wall, he came closer, leaving me no choice but to grant him full control over me. For the first time, I didn't feel even the slightest bit of unease about being entirely powerless under him. If anything, I felt safer, which caused a strong ache between my opened legs. He slowly pushed himself into me, and I broke our kiss with a loud gasp, forgetting exactly how it felt before. Now, it was better than I remembered. Just hearing his harsh, shallow exhale made it better. I'm okay, I just wasn't prepared, I explained, seeing his sudden worry fade. To assure him more, I reconnected our lips and ran my hand over his chest, feeling him start to move and find a steady pace. Quite quickly. You are so addicting, he whispered into my mouth, groping my breast in his hand, then trailing kisses along jaw. I love how you feel, he breathed, and I wrapped my arms around him for better stability, clawing at his back. Axel, I moaned, delicately digging my nails into him. When he released a shuddered breath and roughened up his strokes, his body pinned mine, and I was surprised as to how I continued to move beneath his firm grasp. His hand then moved lower and I whimpered, feeling it come in contact with a very sensitive piece of me nobody's ever touched before. Say my name again, baby, he groaned out, grunting and panting against the crook of my neck, and his fingers softly circled me, and a familiar feeling formed inside me. Axel Morty's POV, then don't yell at them, he slurred, frowning deeply, and I couldn't resist the look in those big, green puppy eyes. You're weakening me, beautiful. I've gone mushy. I let her hands go and looked at the others. You five are going to hear about this later. I mind-linked, watching their amused expressions turn pale. And after trying to save the little pride I had left, something came in harsh contact with my ass. I jumped with a shrill squeak, whipping to face Angel, who's not quite acting like an angel. With wide eyes, she was standing next to me, wearing the cutest grin I've ever seen, and it screamed innocent. But I knew better than to believe that. I felt everyone's eyes on us after my feminine squeal, and humiliation choked me for a number of reasons. One, I just made a sound no normal man can possibly make. My tiny human just owned me in front of half my pack. I feel insanely emasculated. 3. I will be doing absolutely nothing about it. So, everyone will see her get away with such atrocity. Flobby busted out laughing and the others soon follow. While the rest of the pack was likely too afraid to laugh at my embarrassment, I snatched my mate's wrists and pulled her alongside me, leaving the crowded room and stepping outside onto the porch. As soon as the door closed, she slipped out of my hold and gasped, her grin falling into a serious expression. How do I sober a human up? Are you an alien, Howard? I furrowed my eyebrows. Then she continued to dead stare right through me. It was beginning to be quite uncomfortable. Because if I'm being honest, she's kind of scaring me. If she thinks I'm an alien, what else could she be thinking about scary? Dax shivered mockingly. If you had free will to choose any person in the whole wide world, would you still be with me? She tilted her head and stumbled, grabbing onto the house. Before I had time to catch her, that's such a smart question for such an intoxicated mind. I opened my mouth to answer, but she suddenly collapsed and groaned, my body consumed with panic and worry. So, I got down to help her. She was laying completely still, telling me she might have passed out already, until I saw her open one of her eyes and peek at me, quickly pretending to sleep again, after seeing I was already staring down at her. What the hell? I know you're not hurt. I raised a brow, watching her shoot into a sitting position and wobble. Her eyes rolled back and she groaned, plopping back onto the wooden boards with a small thud. Do I have to be hurt for you to kiss me? She mumbled, turning her head and opening her eyes to look at me. Her face was extremely flushed, and she looked so in it. Angelica Winter's POV. The thoughts won't stop. Ever since I saw my father, my head won't stop filling with terrible things. It's like I have no control over myself. When I looked at him, all I saw was red. And I knew what I was doing, but I just couldn't stop. I don't even feel guilty. They think that's the worst part of it all. Hey, beautiful. I felt a hand cut my cheek and I opened my eyes, squinting up at the man, before slowly realizing it was Axel. Do you think you'll be okay on your own? I'll only be gone 20 minutes at most. I shook my head frantically. And no, he will hurt me. He's going to hurt me. You can't leave. Take me with you. I breathed, throwing myself into his hold. Asked her if case sweetie. My mother smiled warmly, setting her keys down onto the hook and sliding her shoes off. She crouched down and I grinned up at her, closing the distance between us and throwing my arms around her with a giggle. What did you and your dad do today? She asked, squeezing me tightly, then leaning back. She continued to smile, lightly pinching my cheek. Did you have fun? I frowned at the reminder, shaking my head. He's been in your guy's room all day. I think he keeps her to himself because he keeps making loud noises. I tried to check, but the door was locked. I hope he's okay. Her eyebrows furrowed and her smile faltered. Don't worry. I'll make sure he's okay, all right. She stood up and grabbed my hand. Come on, we walked down the hallway, nearing the bedroom, where I heard my father groaning and grunting. See, Mommy, he's hurt. I whimpered, looking up at her, and her face turned cold. I fucking bastard, she breathed, completely oblivious to my presence. I felt her release my hand and stomp up to the door, kicking it in with a loud bang, and revealing what was going on behind it. My father was with a woman I've never seen before, and they were both under the covers, shielding themselves. Who the fuck is she with the fuck? My mother screamed. I stood frozen in the hallway, watching my father grab his pants from the floor next to the bed and slip them on beneath the blankets. What's going on? He jumped out of bed and rushed up to my mother, halting in his tracks when she raised her hand and demanded him to stay away. I just got home 2 days ago from overseas, and this is how you welcome me. 2 days, Ryan. How long have you been fucking her? She spat her words, filled with so much more anger than I've ever heard. He opened his mouth and closed it, and the woman wrapped the bed sheets around her body before dashing out the room. She passed me unstumbled, widening her eyes with a gasp upon seeing me, hiding next to the doorway with teary eyes. My mother has never screamed like this before. I'm scared. I'm so sorry she's done this to you. Axel crouched down and pulled me into his lap, stroking the back of my head, buried my face into his collar and inhaled his scent. Instantly feeling my tension ease. She killed it, I mumbled, turning to look up at him, then glancing at Wayne. They stared at me, concern and confusion clearly displayed across their features. She did it to kill my baby, I whispered, meeting Axel's gaze and regretting my words. His heart visibly shattered, and his hold around me loosened, his eyes darkening into a deep golden color. But he asked, sounding eerily calm, and I frowned at his change of eye color. Why are his eyes the color of marshmallows? He looks like Calyx now despite a few minor differences. What does that mean? He suddenly pulled me up and approached Wayne, ending me off with a deadly glare directed at him. Watch her, he snapped, walking off. Before I could utter a single word, where are you going? Wayne called out, holding on to me anyway, to do something I should have done from the start. He snarled in reply, never slowing his walk. Is he mad at me? I tried to go after him, but Wayne pulled me back. His wolf is in full control. It'd be wise to leave him alone to cool off. When Dax is angry, he trailed off and I glued my eyes onto Axel's back. God help whoever he's after. If I have to calm him, I said. Slipping free and running after him. Wayne yelled behind me. Yet I continued, seeing Axel disappear around the side of the building. Full of cells, Dax I called, rushing up to the building. Then, coming to a stop, after rounding the side and seeing nobody, confusion consumed me, until my eyes fell on cellar doors, and goosebumps infected my body. Something's telling me not to go down there. I need to calm him down. Axel Dax, I asked, slowly taking steps toward the creepy doors. After nobody responded, I really shouldn't. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed onto the handle and opened the door, walking down the steps when a woman, unexpectedly screamed. You should be thanking me. I froze. It was a voice I could never forget. Slowly, I descended the stairs and hid in the shadow behind the wall. Hiking past the doorway, I saw Axel towering over my mother, his eyes still piercing yellow, as they danced with golden flames of fury. For you to have the fucking audacity to dare tell me I should thank you is the sickest fucking thing I've ever heard. You ruined her life. Now I'm going to ruin the rest. You're pathetic. He paused, gripping her by the hair on the side of her head, then lifting her off of the ground. Miserable, he added, and she grunted in pain, clawing at his arm. Worthless life, he spat, using his free hand to grab both of her wrists, to stop her from scratching up his arm. Loud snaps filled the room, and I choked on my breath at the unexpected action, hearing her shriek as he forcefully threw her down. She extended her arms to catch herself, forgetting about her now broken wrists, until she landed on them, and they gave out immediately, with another loud pop. Her face hit the cracked concrete and she screamed. Out in agony, my heart was beating rapidly, and I couldn't pry away my gaze from her. Waiting for the guilt and sadness to crash down on me. At her pain, but it never came. What you did back there took a lot of strength, he said softly, his fingertips trailing behind my ear, as he brushed my wet hair back and slid his fingers down my jaw, his thumb caressing just below my bottom lip. You gave me the strength I needed, I replied, looking up at him through my lashes. His eyes shimmered under the gentle light of the moon, beaming through the window. He trailed his hand down my neck, over my shoulder, then down my side, until he had his arm draped around my back. I giggled as he pulled my body closer, the skin on our waists connecting and my smile lingered, his damp hair interwoven into mine. While we laid face to face, with our foreheads against one another, a chill ran through me. Choo, how cold my body felt compared to his. And he must have noticed because he held me tighter, a crooked grin pinning his lips. It seems I still need to give you the cuddles. You need to be warm, he said with a small chuckle, moving his hand from my back to pull the blanket higher on us. Before replacing it, can I suggest something else? I ran my fingers over his bare chest and outlined the muscles that I could see with my eyes, knowing he could see me do so. What would that be? He asked in all seriousness, stopping my hand from roaming any further. And I lifted my gaze back to his. Will you mark me? I whispered. Wow. His eyes widened and his smile fell. Even slight color washed clear from his face. He opened his mouth but closed it, blinking rapidly. He raised his eyebrows, staring down at me in bewilderment. Do you realize what you're asking of me? I smiled, feeling his hold on my wrist loosen while he stared, and I lifted my hand to trail my finger along the underside of his jaw. He shuddered as I reached his chin and pulled him down. Yet, I stopped and looked up into his bright eyes. I twinkled and he tried to lean in, except I put my finger on his lips to stop him. This made a new emotion spark in his eyes, and my smile widened, making me bite my lip to try to contain it. He gently grabbed my hand and moved it. You're torturing me, he purred, letting me go and squishing my cheeks, causing my lips puff out. Don't do that in front of me, love. You're arousing as is, but when you do things like that, he trailed off. I wiggled my nose and he moved his hand down to mine. So I leaned in and left a quick small peck on his lips, before pulling away and drooling over. Whoa. He threw himself over me. I squeaked in surprise at his agility to do so, without losing balance or crushing me. His arms encaged me beneath him and he smirked. Do you remember what I said happens to trespassers? I nodded, grinning up at him, and silence infected the air around us for a moment. What do you think happens to a cute little bunny? Cat finds it funny to taunt a hungry wolf. The bunny jumps on the wolf so he can't eat it, he exclaimed, throwing my arms and legs around him and pulling him down onto me. I squeezed him in my arms and locked my legs around his lower back, thinking I had one. And he did a push-up and lifted my back off of the bed as I continued to cling on to him. Oh no, he gasped, wiping the smile from my face, until he flopped on his back and squeezed me in his arms. The bunny's cuteness is too much. The wolf couldn't help but fall in love and go vegan. I laughed loudly, shaking my head and slipping my limbs out from under him. How about the bunny falls in love and eats meat? He tilted his head and smiled. Or they become omnivores. So they're both equally sacrificing and adapting for each other, he said, shifting his hand to my hair and twirling a strand in his fingers. I like that, I answered, lifting my head from his collar and gently biting his jaw. Hey, he jolted away in surprise, staring at me with wide eyes. I scrunched my nose and narrowed my eyes, taking a chomp of air to playfully threaten him with another. My plan backfired, because his surprise morphed into a mischievous grin as my adorable little bunny turned against me. I nodded, attacking his face with a bunch of aggressive kisses. By the time I reached his lips, he cupped my face and kissed me back. To stop me, he flipped us over and laid between my legs, unintentionally pressing his bulge against me. His boxers were all that separated skin on skin, and I shivered at the thought. A heat from him, creating a wave of goosebumps over my body, and I felt my nipples harden. His hand outlined me down to the dip in my waist, lowering to my hip and squeezing a soft moan out of me. Arousal was no stranger, greeting me with a familiar, throbbing sensation in my core, and hastily heating up my chilled body. Only this time, it came on much stronger and I was too eager. I reached and pulled his boxers down, feeling his own arousal pop out, and prod the back of my thigh. Feeling it, I kissed him harder, and he let out a tiny groan into my mouth. Our minty tongues finding each other, Lifting my hips, I found his member and eased myself onto him. He pushed in the rest of the way and forced me back down. I whimpered and clawed at his shoulder, holding his cheek with my other hand. "You okay, baby?" He pulled back to whisper, sounding breathless. I smiled, fluttering my eyes open to meet his gaze. "We've done this before, and Hester stops to check on me whenever I make any slightest noise, and that could indicate discomfort. I love him so much. I'm more than okay when I'm with you," I whispered in reply, returning my lips to his delicately. We lingered for a moment, then he started kissing his way down my neck, while slowly thrusting into me. So I could adjust, I wrapped my hands around his hard-toned arms and closed my eyes to focus on the many sensations. He stopped on the most sensitive area of my neck, hovering his lips over the thin flesh, as if he was waiting, while he continued to gently stroke his erection into my wetness. I felt his callous hand slide over to my sensitivity and lightly begin to aid the internal massage he was giving me. The pressure slowly built and he stopped thrusting, continuing to rub me delicately for a minute, before slowly restarting his strokes, pushing into me deeper than before. And I felt the stretch. I parted my lips with shallow breaths, focusing strictly on the pleasuring sensations. My muscles jolted involuntarily the more they built up, and I threw my head back, whining and panting, which exposed my throat and more of my neck for him. He fastened his pace and kept rubbing my femininity, his breathing becoming shallow and dragged like mine, as we panted and moaned quietly. He kissed the sweet spot, and it made the heat within me explode. I curled under him. That's when I felt a sharp pain pierce into my neck. The pain didn't last, transforming into an immense pleasure that mixed into the euphoria I was already feeling. This went on longer than I remembered, and I gradually came down with a cool sensation sinking into my body. Exhaustion followed closely after, and I went limp, wanking sluggishly, only to open my eyes and find him now, laying next to me panting. "Did you?" I started tiredly, still trying to catch my breath. But he must have known my question, because he replied with a breathy yes. I smiled weakly, rolling to cuddle into him and lay my head over his collar. He draped his arm around me and pulled me impossibly closer, our bodies sharing heat. That relaxed me and made my eyelids heavier. "I'm happy it's you that makes me happy," I mumbled, wrapping my legs around his uncurling into his side, before I heard a response. My eyelids finally closed and sleep swallowed me. "Good morning, Luna." Danny swung into the room using the door frame. I looked up from my untouched plate of toast, just in time to see Whitney and Gabby stroll in behind him. "Is the toast treating you bad too?" Whitney frowned, walking up to the table and analyzing my plate. "Yeah." I frowned, looking down at the buttered bread and grimacing. "Makes me nauseous just looking at it. Good God, woman." Danny shook his head, leaning against the table. "We've tried everything just to get you to eat for the past week, and you're not working with us? I think we should pull Axel away from all that paperwork." Until he was interrupted by a harsh nudge in the gut from his mate. "No, he will freak. She's clearly trying you, moron. When she does, she simply throws it up. I'm about to feed her just so she can puke on you." Abby growled, averting her attention to me and ignoring her grunting, hunched over mate. "I'm sorry, he's not very bright." I blushed. "That's okay. Oh, you guys don't get sick like humans do." I don't blame him. "I think it's time we take you to Wayne." Whitney interjected, earning agreeing nods, so I slid off the chair. Yet, she scooped me off my feet, bridal style, within the second. "You're not straining yourself anymore on my watch." She let the others pass, then followed, all of us exiting the house and into the yard, full of mothers and children, who turned at the sound of a door. They bowed as we passed, and I shrunk in Whitney's arms, covering my face in embarrassment. We didn't enter the building quick enough for my liking. However, as soon as we did, we just so happened to spot Wayne talking to the girl behind the counter. He looked up at our entry. Hello, ladies. He smiled warmly, his eyes scanning all of us and Danny. What brings you all here? Brittany stepped forward and held me out, as if I weighed nothing. Something is wrong with her and we can't figure it out. She doesn't want Axel knowing. So, if you could keep this on the low, that'd be great. His smile fell. Why hide it from him, Luna? I don't want him to worry. I shrugged shamefully. Suddenly feeling like I should have went to him first, instead of going behind his back. Understandable. Let's get you checked out then, shall we? He smiled once again, easing my anxieties. He then proceeded to lead us down the hall. We entered a spacious room, and Whitney set me on the bed, taking a seat in the chair next to Danny. Paul Dabby plopped down in his lap. Wayne closed the door, and wasted no time checking me over. After he finished, he put a stethoscope back over his neck and frowned. All of your vitals are abnormal. Everything appears heightened. And your breathing sounded more like a chore than natural instinct. What was going on that made you come see me? I can't eat. Either nothing sounds good or I just throw up. I'm also sleeping a lot and kind of weak. I answered, watching him tilt my head back to examine my face. Really, I'd say you weren't sleeping enough. Your eyes are very bloodshot and swollen. He replied, furrowing his eyebrows, and moving over to the papers he brought in. On the counter, I watched him write something down, hearing the others whispering to each other. To avoid being disruptive, it doesn't have to be exact, but if you had to guess, what does your early sleep schedule look like? In a day, he asked, never straying his line of sight away from the top piece of paper. 16 hours for sure. Gabby spoke up for me, probably aware that I wouldn't have the slightest clue, given I'm sleeping during that period. He didn't write. Instead, he muttered something to himself and stared at the paper like he were frozen.